Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, he's back. He thought he was gone, but no, it's Tom. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hello, friends.
The kitchen that you're seeing behind me.
There you go. Tom had to watch an ad real quick.
No, it's no. So I don't know why it didn't push to my AirPods, where everything else is pushing to my AirPods right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when YouTube finally turned on because our show started,
sure,
the ads came on. So
course.
It's just Warhammer Weekly bingo.
So
there you go, folks.
Yeah, Tom plays an ad and screws up the sound at the start of the show.
Random audio. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about Psychographic Profiles, something I've wanted to return to for a long time in Warhammer, and we're going to take a deep dive in it. We're going to assign all the new armies. We've got a lot of new books out, and some of them changed a lot as far as how they feel and what they are. And we'll make some predictions on future books and where we think they're gonna fall as well. Since we sit on the precipice of some more books coming out, but to talk about that, we've got to talk about the news. Tom, what do we got in the news?
A rumor engine?
That's right. This could be a fantasy thing, but I think it's still a 40K thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably like a kill team weird model thing.
Sure.
It strikes me as the vibe of
like some kind of chaos kill team guy, or are you saying as a Warcry guy?
Like a
is
Warcry
it us or is it 40K? Which one is it?
Fine, I'll go with it. I think it's. I'll go with it. I think it's. You know what I'm going to say?
What are you going to say?
I'm going to say it's Warcry.
Okay.
And I'm going to go even one step farther and say that I think that it's OBR Warcry.
Ah, okay. So it's the next Warcry box is going to be, OBR against some Chaos Splinter faction or something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Because the bones look shaped.
All right. I dig it. I like that prediction. Let's go with that. That sounds fun. Why not?
Yeah, or it could be a corn thing, but because we could always get a corn box.
Well, we just got corn in Blood Hunt, and it's probably not the corn hero, so I don't think you've got any more corn models coming, unless it's a 40K corn thing.
It could be another.
They just got theirs as well, so
it could be another corn priest.
Could be some corn pops. Could be a corn dog. Could be some corn syrup. Who knows? Could be anything corn related. All right, very good. My wife was asking me about factions in this game. Something I don't remember how the conversation started in AOS. She was asking me something about dogs, and I said, "Well, there is one army that favors dogs." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's corn. Corn favors dogs. They have corn dogs." And she thought I was joking with her because of course, how could that be serious?
Because that sounds right.
Because it sounds too insane to be real. But no, it is the truth.
Does she know that that's what Warhammer is? It's too insane. That is the nature of Warhammer.
It's hard for an outsider to look at that and go, "Oh no, that's you really have a thing that is corn dogs, right?" So,
well,
sure.
I would say it's not just corn. Technically, Soul Blight has a thing for dogs too.
I guess they do have puppies
Doggos.
as well,
yeah.
And
they have one of the Virkos puppies.
Yeah, Jack Summers makes a good point, by the way, that the symbol behind him is obviously a corn symbol, and I don't know how I missed that when I first looked at it, and I now agree with you, Jack. So you win me over to your position. It's definitely a corn thing, but I'm going to say it's a 40K corn thing. There we go. All right, what's next?
We have KO is going up for pre-order.
Yes, it is.
So that was a fast turnaround from, hey, it looks like we may be getting a KO book to here is the book, enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Next week will be the review show because it's on pre-order this Saturday, so we'll do our review show next Saturday or next Wednesday. So
I'm excited. We'll talk about that next week.
Sure. I'm sure we'll have lots to discuss. I mean, look, it would be almost impossible for it not to be better. I'll say that. Just because it's one of the worst books in the current rotation. So, your bar is very low.
Sure. I've been following the leaks on WhatsApp, and my initial gut is that it's a complete rework a la Nighthaunt.
Okay.
Like, it is a rewriting of what the army is, and and so if you have like expectations, like sunk cost fallacy type stuff, like all that needs to be reassessed, because it is simply a new book with different outcomes. And so that's what I'll say. But we'll talk about it more next week.
We will talk about it next week. Absolutely. Also, Senior Collie Willie said it's their first time watching live. Well, welcome. Welcome. We're glad to have you. All right, cool.
Yeah. We have the box coming, the whatever they call them now, not battalion, or not the getting started, but the Vanguard boxes. And it's nice.
Sure.
I'll say that. It's a frigate, some Arco, an Admiral, and 3 like balloon boys. Like that is a sufficient starting. Like, I could see buying 2 of those easily. You know,
feels like a good central force of the army. Yeah, covering the bases.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, I might run 2 frigates now. I can see that.
Okay. What's next on the news?
Yeah. So we also have Regiments of Renown are going on pre-order this week, and we have War Scrolls for them now.
We do. Sorry, I scrolled to the wrong place. So
it's okay.
Absolutely, they brought up the put out, I should say, the free War Scrolls for all of the Regiments of Renown. I thought, Tom, we'd make this a rather long news section and give them a little review so people can get our take on what we think here. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay.
It'll be fun. Let's do this.
All right, let's get into it. So, we have the, what is it, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6. I was right. Okay, we have the 6 Regiments of Renown. The way they work is you can take them if you're of the appropriate Grand Alliance and not that army, i.e., for example, Elthwyn's Thorns, which is the Sylvaneth one. If your army has an Order General but is not a Sylvaneth army, then you can include this Regiment of Renown. So there we go. I would assume for the other armies, of course, you can just take them. Like they can just be part of your army if you're in that. And they're not a regiment. They're not an ally.
Well, no, like they aren't those things. Like, you can't take Elthwyn's Thorns in a Sylvaneth army at all.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So these guys are out here. They have to belong to the Regiment of Renown Corps Battalion, which is this thing, which doesn't actually work right now. But theoretically, we know what they're going for, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I assume this will be fixed, so it does actually work.
Yeah.
They act as an ally, and we'll talk about this in a moment when we get into the individual scrolls. And you can take them even if your points wouldn't normally allow you to take an ally of that amount.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the basic stuff.
Do we see that really being the case on anything for a 2,000 point list? Because everything's under.
No, everything's under 400, but I assume they're covering their bases for smaller points play.
Yeah,
like at 1,500 points, you only have 300 points of allies, and at 1,000 points, you only have 200 points of allies. So,
yeah,
and people may still want to include these. So there you go. Okay. They have a slightly modified, we should talk about the battalion first because it is a slightly modified battalion. It does have unified, so it's a one-drop deployment, but it also has each unit in this battalion must be within 6 inches of the hero in the same battalion at the end of the deployment. So they can then move apart, but they have to set up together. Yes, exactly. Okay. Stop tapping, Tom. All right, so let's just take a look here. Our Sylvaneth Arch Revenant and the Gossamer Archers is 310. The Killbow and the Bolt Boys are 310. Ironically, also making the Killbow into a leader, which is pretty funny.
It's fascinating.
The Corpse Cart with Balefile the Corpse Cart. I'm not going to try to say that tongue twister. And the Zombies is 180. Coming in by far the cheapest one. Just bargain basement allies here.
Just slide it right on in there.
Absolutely. And that does make the Corpse Cart into a leader. Your Rune Lord, 10 Iron Drakes and 10 Longbeards are 340. A lot of people in there. Your Magister, 10 Horrors, and the 3 Endless Spells are 300. And then your Ogroid Myrmidon, your Fulmoroid Crusher, and your Mind Stealer Spheranx, the 3 coolest kids on the block, are 290. Okay? And of course, they're all unique and single and have to be taken as this whole thing, and they have to be taken in the battalion and yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
Okay. So we're all on the page.
So you said that this doesn't actually work. Is it because that some of these don't actually have heroes?
No, it's because nothing is actually a troop.
Oh, that's fair. I was going to say like the corpse
It's
card,
a single take. That the only
that.
role they have is leader. Now,
Yes.
what's like? There's no actual separate thing to fill this slot with, right? Now, obviously, their intention was that like the Arch Revenant is the leader slot, and these guys are the other slot.
Sure.
Like their intention is plain as day. I don't think it's fine. It's just this isn't actually a separate pick. Normally, that's not how it works, right? You can't when you take a group of things, you can't slot them into different sort of slots on time.
No, what I was laughing about was that some of these don't actually have heroes. Like the Beast Skewer Killbow, like that gains a leader. It also gains a hero keyword. Or it doesn't gain the hero keyword.
Correct, but it doesn't need it. They only need the leader. So
but on the unified description about the deployment, then
6 inches of the hero.
There's no hero.
Yeah, that is correct. Which I assume all that stuff will be like those little minor inconsistencies. It's their first time doing the regiments. I assume that'll all just be fixed up.
Yep.
Quick FAQ. So whatever. I'm not going to worry about that kind of crap.
Sure.
Let's talk about the actual regiments now. Okay. Veramord's Shamblers. This is our corpse cart and 20 zombies. If your army has a death general, but is not.
Never mind. I'm sorry. It does gain the hero keyword.
Okay.
For the corpse cart. It doesn't normally have one.
Cool. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, it's right here. I just hadn't read ahead to correct you. I figured we were going to find out here down below. But at any rate, if your army has a death general but is not a Soulblight Gravelord's army, you can include this regiment or renown. If you do so, no other allied units can be included in your army. You can include this regiment or renown in your army even if its points value exceeds the amount allowed for allied units. So, okay. We got it. I'm not going to read that every time. I just wanted to lay it down so we all understood.
Yeah.
Once you trip into these guys, they are your allies. And it doesn't matter if you don't have the points or not, i.e. playing at a smaller game, as we just pointed out. You can still always take these guys. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we all get the basic functionality here. In this one, yes, the corpse cart becomes a hero because he's a legend among grave robbers, which is a very funny title. I do like that. And then repurposed wards. So the zombies get a 6-up ward while they're wholly within 12 of him, and he, that is to say the corpse cart, gets a 5-up ward while it's wholly within 12 of the zombies. So they're giving each other.
So you're going to push it. You're going to push this stuff together. Yeah.
Encouraging you to keep these two things operating as a as a cohesive unit, I suppose. Although thankfully not as tight as they have to be set up, which I appreciate. I appreciate they made that like a 12-inch bubble instead of something like keeping the 6-inch bubble. Boy, that would have been annoying without those zombies.
It'd be insane.
And then most interestingly, because like what we really want to talk about here is the special ability worth it? That's usually what this is going to come down to, right?
Yep.
Because you're getting a less customizable hero, because all these heroes are going to end up being unique. So nobody can take anything. You can't go into like a 1-drop or anything like that, right? You're increasing your drops, you're cutting off various avenues for advancement and selection since you're taking unique heroes and all that kind of things.
Yep.
So the question is, are the special abilities interesting, worth it, etc.? Now, in some cases, these guys are actually less points than sort of taking it separately or whatever. In some cases, they're pretty dead on. But it's pretty close in all cases. All right. So, Veramord Shamblers are subtract 1 from ward rolls for enemy units within 12 inches of the corpse cart in this regiment or renown.
That's a new rule.
That's a new rule. That's a strong ability. Quite strong. Gets rid of all those annoying 6-up wards that float around.
Yeah, especially for 180 points.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this one comes out pretty interesting to me. I don't really care because go ahead.
I was I could shove this in a I could happily shove this in a Nighthaunt army.
Yeah, I think this one's actually quite interesting. It's a relatively generous bubble of moving around. It's giving you enhanced ward saves on your unit.
Yep.
Not that 20 zombies is that hard to lift, but it's cool nonetheless.
Yep. Well, and it can still do work.
Sure, it's fine. It's fine. But it's very interesting in combination with other units in your army to just start subtracting out ward saves to keep this thing kind of like behind your other things that might be fighting. I'm thinking about, having the ability to let you move all these guys 3 inches because these guys are both deadwalkers or whatever. They can move 3 inches.
Well, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that because that you'd have to be a Soulblight army, and you can't be a Soulblight army with this.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's funny. Yes, of course.
So,
again, barring on whether or not you're right, barring on whether or not these guys can actually just take this unit.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you're not going to be able to get synergies with them, assuming you can't actually. And because it was explicit, I'm assuming that's going to stick. But what I would point out actually is, let me remind you that these also have all the default abilities as well. Sure. And the corpse cart with the Baleful Brazier is also -1 to wound for enemies nearby within a 9-inch. Sure. And so it's -1 to ward save within 12, -1 to wound within 9.
Okay. So what are we rating this one?
I mean, I would give this like a B+ maybe.
Yeah, I'm thinking B+ on this one.
Yeah, it's not like a must take, but I look at this and go, yeah, I mean, it's worth probably 180 points.
I agree. I could see this in most of the other death armies. OBR don't mind this. The as you mentioned, the penalty to wound, the penalty to ward saves, quite potent. Ward saves often get in the way of OBR and what they want to do because they're not a hugely hard hitting army, right? So that kind of they want to win attrition wars. So making it so their opponents, it's harder for them to out attrition them, I think is pretty solid. And these guys are cheap, as we mentioned, right? At 100 and what do you say, 180? I think that sounds right.
Yeah, this doesn't this also doesn't use all your points as well.
Well, it does. Remember, you can't take another ally.
Once you can't take an ally.
Yeah, okay. It shuts off all.
Sorry, I must have missed. I must have missed that. Okay,
it's okay. We're all dealing with new stuff here. Yes, it's all good, man. It's all good. Okay. So yeah, I think this one's a winner. Cheap, effective, high utility, good abilities.
Yep.
What's not
imagine running this behind like a wall of Mortek Guard.
Yeah, sure. Or honestly, most other death armies you mentioned, Nighthaunt. I don't mind this in FEC either. I'll point out. Honestly, I like them in all these conditions. It's just a useful thing. All of those 3 armies we mentioned want to get in there, want to get in melee, want to do some damage, and don't love it when they run into ward saves, something like Nurgle or something, right? So hey, why not take all of Nurgle's 5-up ward save in a bubble and make it into a 6-up? Seems pretty strong. Okay, cool. Let's look at the next one. The Coven of Thrix. Oh boy, this one. Okay.
Yep.
So there is an important thing here that is worth that we can all thank God for. All right. This is a hugely important note about these guys. When I read these guys, I was terrified. Okay.
Sure. Is it the paragraph in the bottom left?
It is. It is. So first of all, same things about blah blah, Chaos Army, etc. Right? And then the Horrors of Tzeentch unit in this Regiment of Renown cannot use its Split and Split Again ability. Cool. Which would mean we're down to what's the other rule called that nobody's ever used?
Spiteful Split or whatever that kicks back mortals.
Yes, so that's what you're using with your little pinkies. So they don't. The important part here is the pinkies do not turn into blues and do not turn into brims. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's talk about our actual rules. In the first battle round, after the players have received their starting command points, but before the start of the first turn, the Magister in this Regiment of Renown can automatically cast a spell they know that summons a Disciples of Tzeentch endless spell. Do not make a casting roll. That spell cannot be unbound, and that endless spell cannot be dispelled in the first battle round. Set up the endless spell as described in the summoning rules. Okay, so he's bringing along effectively an allegiance ability with him for
correct.
for what's going on here. Because remember, that's something that Tzeentch itself can do. So he's taking that to the other Chaos armies. Okay. And then we've got Sparks of Profane Potential. Once per turn at the end of a phase in which a horror model in this regiment of renown was slain, while its unit was wholly within 12 of the Magister in this regiment, you can pick one endless spell on the battlefield that was summoned by that Magister and remove that endless spell from play. If you do so, that Magister can immediately automatically cast a spell they know that summons a Disciple of Tzeentch endless spell, blah, blah, blah. Don't make the roll, can't be unbound. Set up the endless spell as described. Depending on the type of endless spell you set up, you can immediately do one of the following. So, Burning Sigil of Tzeentch, resolve the effect of the Radiant Transmogrification ability as if it were the end of the movement phase. Basically, tick it off. It pops off. Tome of Eyes, attempt to cast the Parchment Curse with the Magister in this regiment round as if it was your hero phase. So, use the special spell you get. Or Demonic Simulacrum, resolve the effect of the Snapping Jaws ability as if the endless spell had just moved. So, again, just resolve the effect of it. The point being is that, so, once per turn at the end of the phase, after one or more pink horrors has died, you get to shut off one of your endless spells and bring it back out in some new position. Quite interesting.
Yeah, this is just begging for shenanigans.
It is quite shenanigan-y.
Yeah.
You're not wrong in that you can reposition it. Like, if you can get your
yes.
own guy killed, sure.
Yes.
You can,
Right.
like, in any phase, if you need to reposition your spell and you have the ability to get your own guys killed.
Right. And so, like,
You can just
I'm even
reposition
thinking
your
about,
spell.
like, throwing another endless spell out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where it does damage in an area near one where your hordes are. It kills a horde, and then you get a free spell on top of that, of one of these. Like, there might be some really interesting tools as well. The Burning Sigil. Yeah, I don't know. All I would say is that I think there's some really interesting options.
Sure. Somebody said we froze for a moment. Oh, interesting. Seems like it's working now. I've been watching it the whole time. It's worked fine on my computer over here. Like, I'm watching both I watch both the live stream and the actual, like, you know, what is the actual stream outgoing. Like, and I didn't get any messages, so it should be fine. Hopefully everybody's still here. Hey, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear us again now. Looks like it's working fine. If you do, if you can hear me, hey, tell you what, why don't you hit like and subscribe? That's fun stuff. There you go.
Indeed. Yeah,
okay.
And so all I would say is that there may be some really cheaty things you can do here.
Sure.
So, which, I mean, that feels on the nose for Tzeentch. So, sure.
Yep. And the question was, do these 3 endless spells count toward your 3 endless spells for your army? Answer, I have no idea. Maybe, possibly. You have 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. These guys are 300
nobody else
points.
could cast them, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So here's the sure. Well, we're doing the recap right now, Fallen. So the question is, these guys are 300 points. It can lead to some shenanigans with the endless spells. You don't have your split and split again, thank God. What are we rating this one? What's it worth? Are we going to see this taken?
My gut is it's like a B-. Like, it feels like you have to work, and then it's going to be corner case to really optimizing you. That's my gut.
My gut on it's a C. I think that some, like, casty flavored S2D would be able to take advantage of it.
How?
Because having,
like, none of their other people can cast any of the endless.
Because they also happen to like, they have a magic plan already.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this: like, I think that it could potentially, like, the only way that this is useful if it's being exploited in a way that wasn't necessarily intended.
By the way, I'm not sure by default right now that your S2D casters can't cast these spells. If there's something they're in your army list, they're an endless spell now. It requires a Tzeentch caster to cast them. So
I thought it required a certain keyword, but okay.
So, like, barring an FAQ, I don't remember if it's locked to Tzeentch or Disciples of Tzeentch. I'd have to go look at the endless spell.
Yeah.
Either way, if it's locked to Disciples, then yeah, they can't. Then nobody else can cast it. But that's why I'm giving it like a C, because ultimately, The issue with them is like
only disciples of Tzeentch wizards can attempt.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there you go. So your other dudes can't cast it. That's what I thought. So the thing is, it's cool. You can do some fun stuff.
Sure.
But it relies on, it's like too clever by half.
So like, yeah, maybe because you can, as Dan pointed out in the chat, you can include coalition troops, right?
Sure, they're not your allies. Yeah.
Yep. So you could technically pull in like a Gaunt Summoner with coalition, and he could tap into these.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe there might be there again. I will stick by my B-.
Okay, fair enough. Let's keep moving. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the coalition thing, I hadn't considered, but you're absolutely right. Dan is absolutely right. The coalition troops could get into it because they are disciples of Tzeentch people you're pulling in.
Yep.
All right, Hargax's Pit Beasts. It's these 3 guys. So there you go. Bestial Domination. Once per phase, the Ogroid Myrmidon in this Regiment of Renown can issue the all-out attack or all-out defense command to the Fulmroid Crusher or Mindstealer Spheranx without a command point being spent. Yay.
Okay.
And the worthiest stock. At the end of the charge phase, you can pick either the Fulmroid Crusher or the Mindstealer Spheranx in this Regiment of Renown, and 1 enemy monster within 3 inches of it. If you do so, roll a die on a 3+. The Strike Last effect applies to both units you picked in the following combat phase. Okay.
No, I don't hate that.
All right. So these guys, I cannot remember all the points for these. I'm sorry, everybody. These guys are 290 points. What are you getting? You're getting like 1 decent monster in the Mindstealer Spheranx who has a pretty useful thing going on. And you're getting 2 completely subpar, well, they're not actually monsters, but you know what I mean, like units. None of these actually have the monster keyword. Let me just be super clear. You're getting 1 average unit and 2 bad? I don't know.
Well, the Mindstealer
underwhelming
still has his
units,
game, right? The Mindstealer still has his game, right? His dice game?
No, he doesn't have his dice game. He rolls now at the start of combat, and it's still against bravery.
Yeah.
But it's... I like how people are correcting me on the monster. I know they're not actually monsters, everybody.
But,
I was using it colloquially.
But this gives him his strike last back against monsters.
Well, he can still make somebody strike last. It's a thing. It's just
sure.
It's a bravery thing. Okay.
Sure.
It's a bravery test. There's no way I'm picking this. Tom, for the love of all that is holy, mute your phone. How do you have that so loud? Okay. So, I just can't see it. Yes, yes, LNRDI. Yes, they count as allied units. Not only do they count as allied units, they count as all your allied units, regardless of their actual points. Like, you can't take these and other allies.
What I don't understand with this, let me say it this way. What I don't understand with this is I don't know what army wants them.
Sure.
Of the Chaos armies.
Yeah.
What Chaos army looks at them and goes, them.
Right, man, I wish I could have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't... I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. They're cool models. These are 3 of my favorite models. Okay? I think every one of them is absolutely gorgeous. I think they're fantastic.
I don't know.
I
I'm not a
own
big
all
fan
of
of
these.
Crusher.
I like him too. I like all of them. I really do. But no flipping way. Like a 3-up chance to make a monster fight last.
And they may not even have any monsters.
Sure. Yeah. I just don't buy it. The Fulmroid doesn't do enough work. The Myrmidon is bordering on straight up like terrible. I have played him in S2D as an actual like purposeful choice leader, and the Spheranx is decent. Like I'll give it that. So, yep. Okay. That one's gonna be a pass. I'm giving that a solid D. Like this one's a D from me.
I don't know.
As in, do not take.
I would venture a D minus. Like, this is bordering on the worst possible,
Sure.
because not only are the rules not compelling and the cost is high, it actually just brings nothing to any of the like Parallel Army.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
Right. No, exactly. I agree. All
Like,
right.
I don't know what, if that's not an F, I don't know what an F looks like.
Yeah. Because they're all super cool, and at least the one ability is marginally useful. That's why it's not an F.
Okay.
That's it. Like, that's literally it.
I'll allow it. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, like, making a monster sometimes fight last is marginally useful.
Sure.
Okay. Big Grix Cruel Shots. This is a kill bow and effectively 6 bolt boys. Hey, wonderful. Did you want some shooting? Go for it. If your army has a destruction general but is not a Cruel Boys army, you can include this regiment of renown. Very interesting how that works with the rest of Auric war clans.
Sure.
So because like you could still potentially be taking these in
Iron Jaws.
Well, not just that, sure, but also you could be taking these in a Big Wall army and still getting benefits and bonuses because you're not a Cruel Boys army.
Sure.
So that's fun. Okay. So let's get into this here. Toxic Laden Skewers. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by this model in this regiment of renown is 6, that attack causes a number of mortal wounds to the target equal to the weapon's damage characteristic and attack sequence ends. So, again, it's just them bringing their army rule with them, carrying over their normal, thing. Hades Death God says it shouldn't fit in because it's still Auric War Clans units. I understand that, but the rules there say unless something up top, unless way up here they have different rules.
Not a Cruel Boys.
Let me make sure there's no different thing up here. Yep, not a Cruel Boys army. That's fine. I can. There's plenty of other options there, so that's cool.
Yeah, so you could still include them in Big Wall right now.
Yep. Okay. That's very important. Was somebody asking if these are galley vets? No, none of them are galley vets or galley champs or whatever. None of them get the special rules, none of the heroes, because they're all unique. So they all lose access to that, just so we're clear. We didn't mention that at the beginning, but it is worth mentioning. And then Skewer It again. So this is the actual special ability that isn't just them bringing their allegiance ability with them. If any wounds and or mortal wounds caused by a shooting attack made by this regiment of renown's beast skewer killbow are allocated to an enemy monster and not negated, you can pick any number of other models in this regiment of renown and say that they are focusing fire. If you do so until the end of that phase, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of missile weapons used by those models, but all of their attacks must target that enemy monster. Okay. All right. Pretty strong ability. So, we've got the same trip for mortal wounds. As we all know, this is a pretty decent shooting platform. I just looked at these guys and their points went right out of my head. I'm going to say 310. Let's just guess. I'm not scrolling back up. Right. So, Tom, where are you rating this? Dropping this in the other destruction armies. Do you want a 310 point decent shooting platform in Iron Jaws, or as the aforementioned Big Wah shenanigans where you can still cheat and get all your bonuses, or
in Big Wah, this is an A.
Sure.
And
it just adds a whole. If you were going to take this anyways, it just adds an extra cool ability.
Right.
To shoot
you just get free abilities. Right.
You just get free attacks out of your bolt boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about giants? Is there any Sons of Bahamut that would think about taking this?
310, maybe.
Let's see if I'm wrong. They just said 340. All right, I'll scroll back up. Let me look. Now you're gonna make me double check. Nope, they're 310. I was right.
Yep.
310. Ha.
So you could do like, how much is a baby giant?
150.
So there you go. You could do 3.
He's going to effectively. This is going to replace 2 baby giants effectively.
Yeah, you could do 3 megas, a baby, and these guys, and I don't hate that.
Sure. Yes, that is completely doable on the current points.
And that like puts pressure, right? Like one of the things that the Giants players can't really do is force people to come across the table, like, because most of the time they're having to deal with what's in front of them, which is the megas.
Yeah, technically right now you could build an army that is 3 megas, 2 babies, and these guys. That is doable as long as all your metas, as long
Megas,
as all of your megas were War Stompas.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that you could, and I think that it would be viable, is what I would say.
Okay.
So, and again, like in that, it would be like a B. Like, I think that there's a strong reason to bring those, but I don't think it's broken, or I don't think it's skewy at all.
Sure. I mean, my general feeling is it's not bad. It does give you some interesting reach in some of these armies. It is a little bit of a discount. This is one of the ones that's a discount over its normal cost.
Sure. Yep. Hence why it's an A in Big Wa, because it's just better.
Because it's just taking it. It's just getting more stuff for cheaper. Yep. And I don't hate it. It's actually interesting in the Giant mirror match. Not that I think you have to worry about that too much in the current season. I don't think anybody's really not too many people are going to be playing them. But
it increases your output against other megas.
Sure. The biggest downside is obviously the kill bow, right? I mean, the kill bow itself doesn't really show up much in basically any lists because overall it's a pretty weak swingy unit. And a lot of what you're doing is pinned to that thing actually delivering. And that's tough.
Sure.
So I'm going to give it a solid B, though. I think it is good. And I agree. I think it's better in Big Wa. All right. Norgrim's Rune Throng. This is for our order folks. So this is obviously your 10 Iron Drakes, 10 Longbeards, and the Rune Lord. Cool beans. All quite fine, functional, useful units. So that's fine. And then your ability is once per battle in your hero phase, you can pick one objective within 6 inches of the Rune Lord in this Regiment of Renown and say Norgrim will strike the Rune of Restored Hearth. If you do so for the rest of the battle, models in this Regiment of Renown count as 2 models for the purposes of contesting that objective, and their unit has a ward of 5+ while they are contesting that objective. Okay. So, let's just quickly remind everybody what's going on here with the individual components. This is the most expensive one. This is 340 base. The Rune Lord is quite a decent little priest hero, with the ability to both pray and unbind with a bonus, at least as of right now. Who knows what his world will be like in the wild. Yes, exactly. He's a +2 unbinder, which is pretty good. That's a strong unbinder. The Longbeards can grumble and buff the Iron Drakes. You often took 10 Longbeards just as literally a utility buff unit to grumble and then give you the bonus for wounds on your Iron Drakes. And your Iron Drakes are pretty good shooters if they don't move. Now,
the Longbeards also have an auto unbind of, like, they can auto dispel an endless spell.
Yeah, they can.
So this is actually a pretty potent 1-2 combo between the Rune Lord and the Grumblers.
Yep. So I quite like this one, even though it's the most expensive one. Now and their special ability is quite strong. We're talking about a season with a reduced number of central objectives, where you're often going to want an anvil to sit on an objective and be able to withstand something. And 10 Longbeards aren't the toughest thing in the world, but
they're going to be a 4-up that have a +1 to save natively. Sure. And they are then going to have a 5-up ward counting as 2 models. They're only 1 wound to each.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is that, because of how this is worded, anybody that's played dwarves know that they're not going to move anywhere. So wherever you put them, that objective that they walk onto, they're going to be there the entire game.
Right.
And so realistically, what's going to happen is they're going to move on to their objective. trigger their ability, and for the rest of the game, they're just going to get the benefit of counts as 2 and 5 up board.
So here's the question, because these guys aren't going to move anybody off an objective, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, the shots are good. Okay, they are, but like
Iron Drakes can do work.
Sure, they're good. I'm not saying they're not, and they have the Rune Lord to buff them. Like, it's funny to me that they put a box out that is literally the 3 pieces you use to create deadly Iron Drakes, right? Because it's the Rune Lord for the Rend, the Long Beards for the Grumble, and then the Iron Drakes themselves. If they had just included like a bridge endless spell in here as a bonus, you really would have had the whole shooting match, as it were. But my point is that like it's going to be, they're hard pressed to remove another anvil, but they can do some damage from wherever they set up because they have that shooting potential, and the priest is still doing useful things the whole time, the aforementioned Unbind. So is that utility?
It's a great off objective holder.
Sure, like a slightly to the side or secondary.
Slightly to the side, or like in a 3 in a row, like the back objective holder.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're a great thing to just set there and just let them volley into combat.
Yeah, sure. That's correct, Hades. You cannot reinforce these because they're taken as an exact set with an exact number.
Right.
Is this worth 340? And if so, what other armies does it show up in? Who wants this kind of a deck chair, like deck chair sitting anvil that sits there and provides a little bit of utility and fire support? Not a tremendous amount, but some. I have a statement. I have one, I think.
I think new KO would like this.
I don't know anything about the new book, but I mean, KO in general, how they play, yeah, sure. Like, this feels very much up their alley, right?
Yeah, yep. Like, you can't give, because the priest is unique, you can't give them a prayer, correct?
Correct, unless your book says otherwise, where it, like, would somehow allow unique priests to take something, but I can't think of anything in order that's allowing that.
Okay.
Like, because sometimes they'll make exceptions in spell lores and stuff where it says, like, blah or unique heroes.
Yeah, like, the reason why, like, there was a leaked allegiance ability for KO for Thringy, which is a specialty prayer. And so, I would have to look at the wording on that. Like, so I think that KO could possibly use this. Maybe Fire Slayers, but in general, like, you're going to get more out of just running more of your normal. I think
it feels duplicative with what Fire Slayers wants to do.
Yeah,
because that already feels very in line. My statement was going to be Daughters, who are famously quite fragile, don't have a lot of don't have a lot of like bodies that will stick around, because their high cost bodies are often, a high number of bodies are often very easy to remove, right? Like 10 Sisters or 10 Witch Elves or whatever. This actually presents them with an interesting anvil option in the army that does still, by the way, play into potentially like a bow snake strategy. The issue there is Doc is already a really expensive army, and you're taking a big chunk of it out with this. Like, this isn't cheap.
No, it's not.
So,
no.
But I think Doc and KO are the two that really jump out to me. TP Grant, this is 340 points for this particular Regiment of Renown, so it's expensive. So, maybe Sylvaneth Austin J, maybe. They do also sometimes have an anvil challenge, although that it would depend a lot on your list. I guess it would depend on what exactly the list is you're doing there. Sylvaneth are in another similar situation where there's quite a lot of expensive stuff already. So I guess how viable it is in KO will come back next week, and we'll see what the points look like. All right, let's keep going, because my goodness, this is taking forever. All right, Elthwyn's Thorns. Arch Revenant and Gossamet Archers, again, order, but not Sylvaneth, blah, blah, blah. This is the Arch Rev and 5 Gossamet Archers. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by the Gossamet Archers unit in this regiment that's wholly within 12 inches of the Arch Revenant. I don't care, I don't think, about that.
I want mortals. I don't want normal wounds.
Right. Like, I'm pitching for the mortals on Gossamets, right? That's why I took those guys. Like, I'm not getting much out of their normal shots. But okay, cool, I guess. Fine. This one is also 310, by the way, I think. And then Flight of the Zephyr Spites. If the Gossamer Archers unit in this Regiment of Renown is within 3 inches, the Arch Revenant in this Regiment of Renown, when you roll a 2+ to retreat using its Zephyr Spites ability, which allows them to unleash and then bounce, right? That's what that ability is. Instead of retreating, you can remove both units from the battlefield and immediately set them up again, so that the Gossamer Archers unit is wholly within 3 inches of a terrain feature. The Arch Revenant is wholly within 3 inches of the Gossamer Archers unit, and both units are more than 9 inches from all enemy units. Pretty cool ability there. Turns it from just they were already, their retreat, their fly away thing was already mostly getting them out of combat, to be completely fair, right?
But
like
this pulls everybody and puts them anywhere else on the board.
Yeah, which is potent.
Yeah, I mean, it's still just 6 models for 310 points.
Sure.
Like, my gut is we're talking like a C+ here, B-.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of things that are just going to kill these guys when they come in. Like, I'm thinking impact hits. Like, there are some armies that, like, they're just going to roll in and lift the Gosmids and they don't get to bounce at all.
Sure. With, like, end of charge phase stuff.
Right.
Roll in, impact hits, stomp, and then it's like, okay, cool. And okay, now you can do your unleash and fly away with your couple of models, right?
Yeah.
Because all of you as the active player, your stuff goes first. So, yep.
Yeah. I just, like, I'm saying C+ maybe.
Well, like, by the way, the stomp wouldn't happen first. I spoke too soon. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the C+, actually. I think this is cool. The question is, what army needs it?
I don't know who. Right. I don't know who needs this.
Let me make one suggestion. I have one thought. Okay. How's this in Fire Slayers?
I was just thinking that because, so, again, based on the leaks that were on WhatsApp today, like, Fire Slayers are going to lose their gun hauler teleporting because of a change to that unit, and so they don't have a highly
Fire Slayers? Do you mean, are you talking about KO? Is that what you're talking about?
No, like, Fire Slayers lose access to allying in the Grunstock from KO.
Oh.
Like, they can still bring it in, but the ship doesn't have the mobility it once did with the teleport. And so this may return some of that functionality that you used to get from a Grunstock. So it could be valuable. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Like, or I could just have, like, a once per game 18-inch move Grunstock that can do something very similar.
I guess. I don't know. These guys feel pretty mobile. Although my challenge with this is, here's the challenge I have as to why I think these guys are ultimately maybe an even C.
Yeah.
If I know you have this ability that you can teleport,
you're just not going to come in.
I'm just not going to charge you and let you teleport away if in any way I'm risking an objective or anything valuable.
Now, what I will say is this. Against a lot of armies, you may have the Fox Force 5 effect.
Okay.
Where, like, realistically, you could line them up to just stop charges.
Sure, to just be in people's way. Yeah.
Yeah. And be like, cool. Are you, like, you move up 3 inches. Are you going to charge? Awesome. I'll unleash. I'll roll on a 2+. I teleport everybody away.
Sure.
And so, like, so it gives you a one-off, like, delay or harry, basically, with an extra round of shooting. But is that worth it? And the answer is 310 is a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. For 15 wounds, basically, right?
Yeah,
15 pretty fragile-ish wounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a solid C. I could see some uses. My guess is some people will play around with it and try it, but I think it'll mostly be underwhelming. All right. Yeah. Cool. Well, that ends the longest news section ever. That's not true. We've done longer, but that's a pretty long news section.
Way longer.
I know.
We are definitely not going to be done in the hour and a half that I predicted we would.
Sure. All right. So with that, let's move to some pick of the week. All righty. So, Tom, what do you want to share with everybody? What do you got for a little pick of the week for everyone?
Rob, Honest Wargamer Rob.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I don't pick this. Did a review of the KO book, and that's out there, and so check it out. we're going to be talking about it next week, and he goes through the entire leaked book, and so you can check it out right now too.
Okay, very nice. I have two picks of the week for everybody. I'm gonna break my own rules, even though because Tyler's not here, so I've got to live that Tyler life in principle. Hades, no, we did not, because I'm not going to go over partial rules. Like, I'm just going to review the whole book next week, so I'm not going to talk about things out of context of like points and other synergies and stuff like that. I find those like, here's some snippets of rules articles completely worthless, is my honest answer.
Yep.
Okay, so first pick on the hobby side, Travarian, our good buddy, friend of the show, and an all-around nice guy, has a new video up all about his favorite method of speed painting. And so that it's super cool. I really like how he breaks it down, and it's very easy, and just check it out. Like, it's a different take on sort of speed painting, and I really like the results he gets with it. He's doing it on a Space Marine, but there's no reason you couldn't apply it to other types of models as well. Especially I'm thinking like Slaves to Darkness models and stuff like that would look really awesome with this. And my second pick of the week is going to be for our good buddy Scott, the Miniac, who posted up a brand new video today about, is Age of Sigmar a trash game? That was his question. And he complains about a bunch of stuff about AOS in it. And this will not go unchallenged. So everybody's got to go watch that to see his points he's making, or whatever, or don't. I don't care. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to watch it if it's going to make you angry. But if you find it interesting, but we're going to have Scott on the show sometime, as he mentions in the video. We're going to get him on as a guest, and we are going to discuss. It's going to be the debate Oxford style showdown. Like, that's not even that. We're not even going back far enough. We need to go the Lyceum. Okay, it shall be a treasured debate for the future of democracy and all that is just in the universe. And we'll see if we can't win Scott over to the side of truth, justice, and the and well, I guess it's the age
and the double turn.
And the double turn way, yeah. Exactly. So at any rate, it was funny. And no, he does not understand the priority rule, but that's okay. We still love him all the same. And hey, we're like I said, we're gonna get it on. We're gonna discuss. So it'll be a fun show. Okay, let's now move on and talk about some hobby time. All right, Tom. Hobby time. What have you been working on?
Not a whole lot is the answer.
Okay.
My professional life has had me literally just swimming these last couple weeks. So I've just been playing catch up.
Okay.
So nothing painted, nothing just nothing.
That's totally fair.
Skimming WhatsApp or leaks for new books. That's what I've been doing.
I see. Very nice. I want to answer a couple comments. Season of War, what's up? I know I was talking to Scott earlier. He says, I look forward to this debate. I also have words for Scott. Absolutely. Maybe we got to get you all on too. Just to make this a little party. Wouldn't that be great? A little showdown at the O-Town. I'll just step back. Let the Season of War guys do it. TP says he provided YouTube comment levels of commentary on the game, and a guy with his following actively trying to discourage new players to a game instead of hyping a game he likes. I get it. I get the concern. But, at the same time, he was putting it out there with the idea that he wants to see some of these things change, and he talks about some of it being his personal opinion, which he's certainly entitled to put out there. He does have he puts it out with a very clickbaity title, but that's just the YouTube life. Like, he's trying to grow his channel. I get that. And it gives us an opportunity. Yeah, you live and die by the algorithm, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what it does is it gives us a chance to bring him on and talk to him about it and show why we love this game so much, which I really do. I think this is one of the greatest games ever. I love it. Do I have problems with it? Yeah, sure. Does he highlight some of the problems I have and we've raised on this show? Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about things like rules bloat and stuff like that, right? And I think it would be good to have a discussion with it and to have a discussion with him, because I think there are probably lots of people like him out there who might be on the fence about it or who might see these certain things and get turned off. And I think if we can just have a reasonable discussion about the thing and point out, what are the benefits and why we enjoy it and why it's so much fun, I think that serves as a good counterpoint to it. So, there you go. That's why I want to do it. And so, yeah, at any rate. What games does he like for context? He is a big fan of, what is it? A Susuayuf. A Song of Ice and Fire, or war game thing, the rank and flank Game of Thrones game. Yeah,
which by all accounts, I've heard like some people really enjoyed it.
It has some very clever. I played. Scott took me through a game when I was there visiting, and it was a perfectly fine rank and flank game. It does have some very clever mechanics in it that I thought were neat, but it's not a game that I would ever want to play again. At any rate, okay. My hobby time has been, surprise, surprise, still working on Golden Demon projects. And guess what? I got ahead of where I thought I was going to get. I've got this guy. You look at him and you're like, oh, he's basically done. And I'm like, yeah, he's basically done. There's just this one little problem. And this one little problem is this piece right here. this other arm he has that is completely unpainted with this giant, ridiculous banner. But he himself is done. The other two are done. So all that's left is the banner piece, which I'm confident I can make good progress on quickly. And then we just got to do the bases for all my stuff, and we're ready to go. So we're well on track to hit the target and to get all my entries done for Golden Demon. So I was happy for that. Okay. All right. Well, with that, Tom, are you ready to talk about some psychographic profiles?
Always.
Yeah, boy. Let's talk about this thing. We did a show on this a couple years back, and we ranked up all of the armies into the various psychographic profiles. We'll be doing that again tonight. Okay? But also, we're just going to talk about what the heck this even means. Because the reality is, we've many times on this show, in fact, it's probably on a bingo card, right? We've talked about Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. We use these terms all the time. And every time I say them, I know there's a couple people who ask, what the heck does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And for the one or two people who are asking, that just means there's like 50 other people who don't know and just don't bother to type it out, right? So we're going to go through it tonight with an update, talk about the armies, talk about what the heck this even means. And because I think it's really important. The reason I think this is really important is because as a game designer, it's really key that you have concepts like psychographic profiling and psychological utility and positive and negative psychological utility in your mind as you're crafting a game. Because you need to be thinking about these kinds of elements in the stuff you design. What's going to speak to people? And that's really what this is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's get to the introduction. All right, what the heck even is this? What's a psychographic profile? So this was, you got Timmy, you got Johnny, you got Spike. So these were created for Magic the Gathering by Mark Rosewater originally. He's used when did this article first come out, Tom? 2004, I think was the first Timmy, Johnny, Spike article, almost 20 years ago. Does that sound about right to you?
It does.
Okay. That sounds right. It was a long time ago. And I remember reading about this, and it just really clicked with me right away. Because I saw immediately and was able to identify myself in some of the choices I make and the decks that I build and how I think about it. And moreover, even though this was created for Magic, right, it very much applies to all games.
Sure.
Now, these three profiles, though they're like Magic created profiles, they generically work for all games because they're not getting at anything specific to Magic. That's really important to understand here. They are asking questions about the way you engage with the game. what motivates a player to play, what kinds of things do they enjoy, and what keeps them playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not what you like. That's really important. Okay? It's why you like it. There's a very different level there, right? Like I saw CW Kreiner say, shout out to all the Vorthoses in the chat. Vorthos, not a psychographic profile. Vorthos is real. It's an appreciation profile. Okay?
Yes.
Like Melvin and Vorthos and all of those things, they're real and they matter. All right, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but they're not a psychographic profile. They're not getting into why.
Right.
They are the thing you like, not the why of the thing you like. That's the difference. Right? Okay. Yes, absolutely. Cygnus Maximus says, I work in education. We use psychographic profiles for course design. Not these profiles, but it's a concept that goes beyond games. 100%. So, and it's notable to say here that, like, psychographic profiling originally comes out of lots of different fields. This came out of, like, marketing and psychology originally, and then was imported into game design. When I talk about the technology of game design evolving, it's this kind of stuff I'm talking about. Making game design aware of the tools of other verticals and industries. That's what matters.
Other disciplines, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Like the technology of game design evolves exactly like any other technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like and being aware of those technological shifts. We don't tend to think of them as technology because it's not like a phone. It's not a thing I hold in my hand. It isn't a thing that goes beep boop and has circuits. Right? But that's not. I'm sure you, Tom, because you're a scholar, right?
Indeed.
And I know for an actual fact that the way scholars work with texts, and the way you work with texts, is different in many, many ways from, say, how scholars would have worked with it or interpreted things or understood things or referenced things or whatever 100 years ago or 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It's not that there aren't similarities, but you as well use evolving technologies to do that, some of which are real.
Indeed.
And some of which are more processed and squishy like this.
Well, not only that, just from a discipline standpoint, the integration of other disciplines. And so interdisciplinary work will inform how we read and engage those resources. Indeed.
There you go. Absolutely. Okay. So that's what these things are. But let's talk about, we're gonna keep drilling down. That's just like the base. It's the why. Not the what, but the why. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like I think Iron Jaws are cool. I love Iron Jaws, right? The why can have a lot of different answers. All right, so in Warhammer, let's bring it over here first. So, Tom, do you want to answer Mothmat? He said, "Ooh, what does Tom do professionally?" Would you like to answer what you do professionally?
Yeah. My formal PhD is in biblical studies, and so, but I engage in all different types of public thought and the like, and writing and research and the like.
Yes, you do. Tom, I'm sorry. Did you just publish, like, one of the reasons Tom was gone because he was doing a lot of professional stuff, as had some life-ish stuff going on. But I'm sorry, Tom, didn't you get an Atlantic article published here recently?
Yep, last week.
That's pretty great, man. Congratulations. I'll say that on the show. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know what kind of overlap there is in our audience for that, but it's super cool, and I wanted to say congratulations.
Well, that's like news media. But
sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, the Atlantic is a pretty major publication. Okay. So, in Warhammer, many armies lean into these individual profiles, being more friendly to certain individuals. All right. Meaning that, like, some armies can be more Timmy or more Spike or more Johnny, or some mix, or whatever. Most players are not solely one type of psychographic profile. People are often a mix, though they usually favor one above the others. Okay? So in other words, a lot of people, it's very rare that you see somebody who's like, I'm just this. Most people are like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's mostly this or something like that. Hit like for Tom's success. How about that? Everybody make Tom feel good and hit like. Okay. So there are other reasons to love armies as well. And this is like the appreciation profiles I talked about. The art, the lore, the models, and so on. Right? These things really matter a lot. Right? But they're not the same deep-seated why of the psychology. Right? This is the play experience is what this gets to. Okay. And then people can have different psychographic profiles over time. That's true too. Now, over time, or even in different games in different settings, often with a shift to lean into different aspects depending on the social context, right? So what that means is like you might context switch or something like that depending on the game you're playing or the crowd you're playing with. If you're at a tournament versus a casual game in your basement or something like that, people might have different sort of parts of their own psychology they lean into, especially common if you're already a split type and you sort of can lean both directions, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating for me because like I definitely have two like definite skews based on the environment that I'm in. Like what I'm playing in a basement is just simply nothing like what I take to events. Or even if I go to a narrative event, like what I would take to Steve's events is just not what I would end up taking to like NashCon.
Sure. And I think that's fair, right? Like it is important to say this isn't like, it's not like as though you're branded with this and it's some static thing. It's just what you tend to favor. Most people have a thing they favor, but that can vary a lot based on the games. Okay. All right. So who are the people in our neighborhood? Let's talk about the individual psychographic profiles and help you identify which one you are, because that can help you. One of the other reasons I like to do this show is because understanding this can help you then pick an army that is going to be providing you with sort of positive psychological utility over time, right? That you will have an enjoyable play experience with, right? Okay, cool. Timmy was sort of the first one that was sort of put out there originally.
I mean, it's just close to your heart.
Yes, Timmy wants to experience something. Timmy values things that are big monsters, big effects, big spells. Timmy often plays for the journey, not the destination. Doesn't put as much weight on winning, but puts a lot on being able to feel like their pieces did their cool thing, right? Loves cool moments. Can really tolerate a high level of chance and randomness, as long as those things occasionally, pan out and create like something really, really, really crazy, really fun, really wacky, really unexpected, right? Like Timmy loves a role where it's just, I need to make 8 saves out of this on 5s to stay alive, and then it happens. It's just like, oh my god, that's crazy, even if it's the enemy who did it.
A great example of this is like you have giants here, obviously.
Yeah.
But like the warp lightning cannon.
Sure.
For Skaven. Like that is a Timmy unit if there ever was a Timmy unit.
100%. Hundo P. Yes. Spike does not like that thing. No. Right? It is way too random and unreliable.
The first time I read any version of like
right.
Nope.
Right. Yeah. Yep. It's Che said, why do I do this? The drama. Yes. That's just really it. Timmy likes when there's sort of drama in the game. When Timmy also likes novel experiences, right? So we'll tend to
they want to roll that one on the power dice or whatever and just launch something into the stratosphere with more on that warp lightning.
Yep, 100%.
They live for that moment, that one moment where it pops off.
Yeah, and Timmy's memorable moments aren't going to tend to be the game wins, It's going to be the time that this unexpected, outside of the normal standard deviations, event occurred, right? I will give an easy example from actually 40K way back in the day. So we used to play a lot of 40K way back in the day. And in my Imperial Guard unit, I was getting charged by an Avatar of Cain, which I think this is in like 3rd edition. Memory says it was a pretty good unit. It's pretty strong. Certainly my like 6 little Imperial Guardsmen who were getting charged stood no chance against like this thing. But then he failed to kill the dudes and was like injured because I had shot him with cannons or whatever earlier. And my little guardsman hit him with a shovel and he failed all his saves and died. And, you know, that was just like I still remember that, and that was 25 years ago, right? When the little tiny goblin strikes down the Mega Gargant or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So when you're, you know, rolling for some crazy damage effect on 2d6 and you roll the boxcars, right? Yeah. If the event of something is a bunch of people going, whoa, right? If that's the general response from the room, Timmy loves this. This is where Timmy lives. He wants to live in that moment, right? It's not about that happening all the time. It's that like Timmy wants to experience that in a game, right? Okay. Tom, how much Timmy are you? Do you have any Timmy in you at all?
I mean, traditionally, I haven't classified myself as Timmy, but I would be lying if, like, there's probably at least 10% in there, just simply because, like, the Johnny in me is almost always working for that Timmy experience.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Like, the Johnny is trying to get and engineer that one thing where everything, like the Rube Goldberg machine or whatever, lines up and spits out this one outcome that is just statistically not likely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's so even my Johnny has so 10% is what I would say. I'm probably a 10% Timmy.
Yeah, that's fair. It's like 75% for me. This is my major motivation, right? And Tom knows me well. Yep. Like this is absolutely the vast majority of the reason why I play the game. I want big, fun, cool things to do big, fun, cool things. And when my big, fun, cool toys fail or get killed before they get to do their fun, cool things, I'm sad. If my big, fun, cool things get to do their fun, cool things and then I lose, I'm like, yeah, who cares? I got to do my fun, cool things. Like, I won, right? I achieved the thing that gave me psychological utility, as it were, right? Like, I had a great time. The win in the end is so minor comparatively. Right.
Yeah.
Like, no, I did fun things. Right.
Yep. And if you stop Vince from doing fun things, he does not have a fun time at the table.
Right. That's when I get sad.
So like when he plays Nurgle and just bounces off everything, that is not a fun experience for Vince.
Well, the worst is it. Yeah, the game I always talk about being one of the worst tournament games, the one against you, where you're putting me under conditions of like everybody's basically hitting on 6s and was like wounding on nothing and couldn't kill anything.
So you roll all your dice and do nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Or for example, engineering a situation where like your Maw Crusher can't land, can't retreat, can't charge, can't do anything, can't pile in. You know, something like that. Also a terrible experience.
Absolutely. And yeah, Freddie Red Moogle says the rare breed of Timmy that plays horde armies, but because it's fun to see like 50 guys get wiped off the board or having some gobbo bonk a big hero. No, 100% that's still Timmy. Like big units, like big hordes. Like, you know, if you've looked at the Soulblight Gravelords and said I'm gonna put 180 zombies on the table, right? That's a very Timmy thing to want to do, right? Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Okay. Inquisitors says, what if you're equal parts of all three? Then you're a pretty rare flower, is what I'll say.
Sure.
Like it's not impossible. Certainly people can have, like I said, most people have some motivations of all of this, but it's pretty rare to see somebody literally that evenly split. But it can happen. Yes. Timmy hate. What does Timmy hate? If we know what Timmy likes, what does Timmy hate? Timmy hates like debuffs. Timmy hates losing his things at the top of one, right? Before they get to do anything.
Anything that says you no longer get to do the thing you wanted to do.
Right. Like Timmy's going to rate NPE as debuffs, really strong shooting, all that kind of stuff that will like lift his pieces before he even gets to do a fun thing, or make it so his units don't actually function how they wanted to, so on and so forth, right?
Yep. When a Timmy's expectations get subverted, that is when the Timmy is having the least amount of fun.
Right. Like, I put all the points. I took my big toy. I would like to use my big toy now, please.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, not necessarily Inquisitors. Not everyone hates debuffs and getting Alpha Strike. Some people, like Spike, doesn't care at all. Spike accounts for that kind of stuff and will like play through it. He's got a plan to win.
Yeah, so Spike, or I don't know if that's
we'll get ahead of it. No, we're next up is Johnny. But yeah, like no, not everybody hates it. That's
Spike is more than willing to sacrifice his toys if it means victory.
Right.
Even
absolutely.
against an Alpha Strike.
Yeah, 100%. Like if that can play into his plan, great. That's fantastic, right?
Yep.
Okay. Johnny. So here I have a little Skaven rat, though admittedly, of course, the Arch Warlock and all of that, Scryer can also act very Timmy-like. But Johnny wants to express something, often cleverness. Johnny likes the unusual or overlooked choices and combos. Like the quickest way you can get Johnny to play a unit is by saying, this unit is bad, but secretly in this situation, it could be good. Johnny's all over that, right?
No,
like, oh.
So we covered a bunch of those. Previously, we covered a bunch of the Regiments of Renown. Yep. The Tzeentch Warband Regiment is Johnny. Like
100%.
No one takes that other than a Johnny who is wanting to exploit the crap out of it.
If your list has a win condition of shenanigans,
yes,
right, then you're a Johnny. Like you might be a Johnny. So that's just right there. Yeah. I don't mean the lion. Okay. So like Johnny is often looking to express something. That's usually cleverness, but not always. He likes unusual, overlooked choices. He loves list building. Like a major portion of most Johnnies is the list building phase. They'll agonize over the last 200 points of a list like it matters. Like it even matters, right? Because in their mind...
It does matter. It does. It does matter.
Mm-hmm. In their mind, they're constructing the myriad situations where like, okay, but if this and this and this happens, then I'll need this thing. But if this and this and this happens, then I need this other thing. All right, which situation's more likely to occur?
Which of these situations is going to happen in tables 4 and 5 against the other top meta armies? Yeah, that is absolutely a Johnny thing. Vince has likely muted me at times as I tried to send him messages over like a 4-hour period, trying to agonize over the last 120 points of a list.
Yeah, sure.
That is a true statement.
Yeah, if you believe there's a perfect list, right, you're a Johnny. That's just it. Like Tom will be like, here, check out this list. No, now this list. And I'm like, these are the same lists. Corporate wants me to find the difference between these two pictures. It's the same picture. Okay. Right. All right. And Johnny loves the moment when his plan or her plan all comes together, right? Like it's very much like the I love it when a plan comes together conception, right? Like there's some series of elements of things they're going to do, some trap they're trying to lay. They're thinking about moves 5 steps ahead. How do I need to get you to move here to do this so I can get my unit to move here, which will cause you to do this, which will then cause me to counterstrike, and I'll win. Right? They're sort of like Rube Goldberg machines that Johnnies are always constructing in their minds, right?
Right.
Okay. What else about Johnny, Tom? You're super Johnny, right? Let's talk about
ourselves. I'm probably like a 65% Johnny. Like this is the bulk of my personality, is what drives. Like I can just spend hours list building. When I get a new book, I will digest everything, sit with it, and then just start spinning out lists. And I'll run through 30, 40, 60 lists from a book if I really like the book. Just to try to figure out and that'll be my starting, by the way. Like I'll spin out that many lists without picking up anything. Without picking up any dice, without moving any models. I'll do that many lists, and then goes into the testing phase, playing it to actually fine tune to make sure that everything's doing what it should.
Yep.
Johnnies are they're going to be most frustrated when they're about to do their thing and you stop them from doing their thing.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's
when you linchpin, when you like hit the port on the Death Star, all right, and stop their whole plan from going off, right? Yes.
Like that will eat a John. You know, we talked about like for Timmy's taking away their fun, like their expectations. For this, it's often subverting the Johnny at the last minute is like the biggest letdown that they could ever experience. Even worse than losing.
Yep. Yeah, and that's just it. Like Johnny and Timmy both, everybody plays to win, right? It's not as though people aren't trying to win. It's not a question of are you trying to win? It's a question of how much does winning matter to you, right? Or something like that. And you can like, can you lose and still feel as though you've drawn that positive utility from this? Yeah. Johnnies want to feel like they're unique, like they're special, like they're clever, like they're independent, like they're the ones who are doing something. Johnny loves underpowered, overlooked units, things that like, you know, aren't normally played, but in the right combination, the right hands can suddenly yield high value, right?
Yeah, so Johnnies would spend a lot of time, like, they're not going to be attracted to the most powerful thing.
Right.
They're going to be often attracted to the most unique thing. And the reason why is because they're looking for the opportunity to exploit that thing in a way that no one.
Right.
Like they want to take whatever that thing is and just turn it up to 11 in this weird corner case and have somebody look at it and go, wow, I guess that really is a good unit.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so, you know, the reason I use the rat here is because, like, and we'll talk about this when we get to books, but, you know, Skaven in the list building phase is an extremely Johnny-ish experience with the way you can put together all of these myriad pieces and have them sort of dancing in this complicated ballet of interactivity and optionality and, you know, really express your cleverness through, like, I move this here, this guy jumps in this null hole, this guy jumps in this null hole, I've already skitter leaped here, I do this, right? These guys pop out of ambush here.
Yep.
You know, like all these decisions. That's another important part about Johnny. Johnny loves, like, Johnny isn't scared of complexity. Timmy generally will be like, I don't like complexity, I like things to be relatively simple, straightforward, I want it to do what it says on the tin. Johnny looks at complexity, and in complexity can find value, right? Because it provides more optionality.
They're looking for a series of permutations that nobody else has combined.
Right.
Or oftentimes Johnny, well, I guess Spikes are going to be like this too. Like they want the complexity in the moment so that they can adjust accordingly.
Yeah, it's about having the more decisions. So one of the interesting things about psychological profiles, the psychographic profiles, is how they map onto your interest in making decisions. Like, Timmy wants to make the least number of decisions in the game. Johnny wants to make the most.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
The more decisions that are made, the happier Johnny is. Because that's all stuff where he has a chance to prove that he or she made the right decision.
Yeah, so, like, historically, Lumineth were a Johnny army.
Sure.
Like, when they were just all the decisions all the time.
Yeah, like we think of Benjamin Sava's, you know, like his decision tree of the 12 spells he casts in certain orders in his hero phase. That's writing those down and mapping them out is one of the most Johnny-ish things I've ever seen. Right? Yep. That itself is just like the psychographic profile given form. Right? Yep. Timmy would never do that. Never.
No, Timmy would be like, this sounds good right now.
And Spike would distill it to like the 3 things that have to get cast.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right, so that's Johnny. Boom, boom. Spike. Our picture here is Sentinels. Spike wants to prove something. Often they're the best, but not always. Spike often gets a bad rap because he or she generally is the psychographic profile most focused on winning. Okay. But that does not in any way mean they are a bad person or more likely to be a cheater or more likely to be a bad game or anything like that. Any one of these psychographic profiles can be a cheater or a bad person or a bad game, right? Period. Period, end of story. Okay. Spike just is like, well, this is a game. The point of the game is to win, so I'm going to try to win. I don't understand what the rest of you are talking about.
Right.
Right? Like, and so, Spike just simply sees, like, there is a goal. I am trying to achieve it. I will take the most direct route to that road.
Right. There's a right answer in a Spike's mind. Period.
Sure. Spike likes raw power, efficient units, and answers. Right?
Yes.
Spike is generally happy to net list. Doesn't need to feel like they're like super clever, like they thought of their list. If a list is good, a list is good. Great. Let's use that.
So a great example of this for me was like years and years ago, like 2017, for those that have stuck around. When the book, if you go back and watch a view of the Stormcast book that year, I talked about how just utterly broken Vanguard Wing was.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, let me trot out an example of this. And I talked about the teleport and redeploy of Vanguard Wing that you can do every time.
Yep.
And so I preached it from the book launch. I talked about that.
Yep.
Because as a Johnny, I saw that and went, oh, isn't this neat? Right? This doesn't do the things that that other armies normally do. And so it was this weird corner case thing. But then what happened is that a bunch of Spikes got a hold of that and went, let's do this. And so for the entire season, they just crushed their opponents. And, but like, for me, that was never interesting. Like just taking the thing that's powerful, what wasn't interesting, everybody else was doing it. And so as a Johnny, I'm just like, nah, I'll find something else.
Sure. Yep.
And so for Spikes, they have no problem. If it is a list that was successful at other events, they will take it again to other events.
Yeah, sure. Because who cares?
Right.
They're not trying
That's
to.
exactly
This isn't a contest to get recognized for your ingenuity, right?
Right.
It's a contest to win 5 games. Like, that's what I'm trying to do here. And if this provides me the best, avenue to that, then let's do it. Okay.
Yep.
And a lot of top tournament players likely have a Spike element to their personality. Like, you have to have a hard drive to get to 5-0 at a tournament. And it's interesting because at that level of skill, they're some of the nicest people you'll ever meet and play in the world. Like, they are trying to win. They will build or take a good list that will get them to that point. But they're not a jerk about it in any way. They're just going to, like, most of these people I play again, there are jerks in all 3 psychographic profiles. I think Spike gets stigmatized a lot. I want to make sure we're not doing that and we stay away from that. Because there's nothing wrong with playing the game to win.
Right.
Like, that's fine.
And taking net lists.
Sure.
Like, if that's your jam, do it.
Right.
Like, more power to you. But for some people, that doesn't motivate them.
Right. Now, like, what makes any of these people a jerk is when they act and break the social contract, right? Like, if you kill Timmy's toys or debuff him and he does nothing but complain all game about how much this sucks. I don't get to do my thing. This sucks. Well, then that's a horrible game, right? And like, so you're just as likely to run into that with anyone. But anyway, Spike hates, right? What does Spike hate? Well, it's losing is a pretty simple answer. But Spike also doesn't love it when randomness sort of like chips away at his ability to win, right? Because like Spike looks at the numbers and says, like, on balance, this is the way things should roll out. Like, Spike wants things to exist within the normal standard parameters, right?
Yep.
I will lose some units. I will make some bad rolls. I'll get some good rolls, that kind of thing.
In general, don't take the delight that Timmy's do in that unique moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if
it's
that moment,
usually a bad moment for them.
Right. For them, because it's betraying expectation. The Timmys, like, want to embrace the subversion of those expectations. Right. Spikes rests their game on the expectation of delivered performance.
Right.
And so they want things to be reliable as mathematically possible.
Right. And so hold on a minute here, because CM says Spike equals whack. It does not. It absolutely does not. Win at all cost players is very much a derogatory term, because like a win at all cost player will be mean, will do anything, will like stomp over the top of you, right? And like literally just do anything they can to win, up to and including potentially cheating, right? That's not at all every spike. And there are, like I said, there are some bad actors in this psychographic profile, just like there are others. Spike wants to win. That is a true thing. But there is a difference between your psychological utility is drawn from winning and you are willing to win at all costs, up to and including being a jerk and doing everything else in sort of poor sportsmanship, right? There is absolutely a difference here. Like, I can think of lots of spikes, Tom, that you encounter, that you've played at top tables of these tournaments. And, I think of Caleb Walters. Okay,
yeah,
just call him out. Caleb is such a nice guy. He's an incredibly fun guy to play against. Really good opponent. Like, Caleb is absolutely a spike, right? He's playing to win. He's been playing Tzeentch every minute of every day.
Like, I would say that Caleb's probably like a spike Timmy. Like Caleb likes the fun stomp, right?
He does, a little, but he's playing to win.
He's playing to win, and he's playing optimal. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so, like, and there is another thing that Spike hates here that's secret. Spike hates it when there's something so easy and efficient that Timmy gets to pretend like he's a Spike. So, like, Spike would have really hated, like, the 2019 FEC Slanesh time period when, like, Timmy was just taking his big stompy monsters and running around and acting like Spike, right? And just winning games incidentally.
True.
Okay.
Yes, no, it was true.
Like, so that's that, there you go.
Yeah. That's true.
I absolutely agree, Chase. A healthy Spike wouldn't cheat. Cheating means the win is not legit. Yeah, most Spikes don't want to cheat because that means they didn't earn it. Like, they want to earn the victory. That is a thing, right? There's stripes on your shoulder for getting that. Cheating would be anathema to most people, right? And that's why I say there's definitely a difference between that and whack, right?
Yep.
Okay. Like, the game is the game. If you debuff Spike, if you remove his units, he'll be like, yep, okay. Like, cool. That happens. Right? Like, moving on. You know what I mean? Like, that's not...
like, the Spike has no problem, like, lifting up his toys. He's like, cool, this is part of the game, this is the rule. You're not going to often hear Spikes complain about you doing something in the rules.
Right. Yep. Now, I will say, Spike, as a psychographic profile, falls in the middle of that decision range. Like, they want a sort of average number of decisions. They don't love it having too many because that's more chances for things to go wrong and for randomness to creep in. Right?
Yep.
At the same time, Spike is also sort of the psychographic profile least likely to be able to conceptualize the other two. Right? Because, like, Timmy likes playing big stompy things, but gets that other people are trying to win. Right? Or that other people spend a lot of time thinking about lists. And so on and so forth. Spike, as a psychographic profile, often has trouble... Not always. Again, this is broad sweeping generalizations. Often has trouble sort of understanding, like, what are the rest of you people on about?
Yes.
Right? Like
to the Spike, talking about the other two profiles sounded like nonsense.
Right.
Like, that's not how people play the game, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
As, like, not to say they're the least empathetic, but just simply that there's a sense that there's a mono vision as to how the game is played.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is a game, it has a win condition, I'm trying to get to that thing. Like, I don't understand. That's what the game told me I'm supposed to do. Right. So, yeah.
Right. Hades had asked why the Sentinels are the picture for Spike. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure, because this is the most Spike-ish unit I can think of in the world. It negates randomness as, like, in a huge way, especially in its old version where it could, like, see over line of sight and all those kinds of things. It's a long-range, highly efficient, highly effective, highly deadly, low-risk unit that has traditionally and often been extremely efficient at what it removes. It punches above its weight. With your number of points of Sentinels, you will often remove more than that number of points, while also removing simultaneously their best units, their most critical
And when
pieces.
coupled with something like Teclis, which was auto casting all your spells or whatever, they could be like, yep, that unit is going to teleport over here, Lambent Light, efficiently just lift units off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And I agree, Chase. Jerks are just jerks. That's right. That's right. Yeah, like bad players are just bad players. None of these profiles are more likely to be bad players or cheaters than anybody else. It's just a bad player is a bad player. Like we could just separate them off and be like, yeah, that person's a jerk. And that's fine. Okay. So now that we've laid down all the basics, Tom, let's assign some actual armies. Here we go. Okay. This time we have the triangle. I did it, Tom. Look at my awesome triangle. It's totally professional.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, man. Now let's go ahead and assign some of these armies. Okay, we got a lot of armies.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Here we go. Okay. And I have them roughly grouped by Grand Alliance.
That Timmy zone is pretty big.
It is, I feel, because it's going to need some extra space. Also because I'm bad at building stacks of triangles and diamonds and stuff, but whatever. It doesn't matter. This was the best I could do. I'm sorry, everybody.
That checks out, too.
Okay. Let's just start grabbing some armies. Let's start with a simple one, shall we? Sons of Behemoth. There they are. The big boys themselves.
They just sit firmly in Timmy to me.
Yep. Like almost peak of the triangle. Especially they got even more Timmy in their current incarnation. Their weapons got bigger damage, but became more random. Yep. Right?
The body slam.
Yeah, the body slam. Yep, is like
the body slam is the epitome. The body slam is the epitome of Timmy.
Yep. Like this book now screams Timmy. It's got to be the most Timmy focused aligned book. There's almost 0% of anything else. Your list building exercise you can do in your head, right? Like you just your army is basically 4 units, you know?
Yep.
There's almost no room to play there. Like the clever play is taking a bunch of war stompas, that way you could fit in an extra man crusher. Boom! Behold my list tech. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Tynomite said that's the only time this season where Giants will be at the top. Oh, boom, got him. All right, yeah. So I think we all agree, and this one's pretty obvious, right? Okay, let's grab a little Death Army. Tom, we're gonna start with your favorite because they're right on top. Let's talk about these spooky boys. The Night Haunt. They're so spoopy.
You may disagree with me, but I would put them in between Johnny and Spike, leaning towards Johnny.
Okay.
Because it has all the tools. Like it's all the tools you could want, and there are some there are aspects of the army that are just simply hyper efficient. I'm gonna lean away from Spike because it's like their main mechanic is still based on random rolls, those charge rolls. And the spikes are gonna your best things are not real reliable.
There's still a little slot machine action.
There's a little slot machine. So that's why I would put them in the middle ground between Johnny and Spike, leaning Johnny.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's exactly right. I don't disagree with you at all. The list tech with Night Haunt is deep. There's lots of different options. Johnny's will often, and there's a lot of you were playing around with the Black Coach. The most Johnny-ish thing you could do in your list, right? Because you're like, okay, here, if I use this thing in this right way, then I'm going to get maximum power out of it. And it's totally one of those units. Mm-hmm. A Hundo P, right?
Yeah, it is not a Spike unit.
But its abilities are crippling and strong. So Spike is also going to be quite attracted to it. Things like just knocking off bonuses to hit, to save, making people fight last, getting rid of Inspiring Presence. These are very Spike abilities, right? Like Spike reads those things and says, me likey, right? That's a clear path to victory, right?
Yep.
It is. Night Haunt is so far away from Timmy. It's not even funny. Oh, geez. I need to bring I didn't put them. That's very funny. I'll have to bring to front. I didn't realize I forgot to restack all these. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Such is the quality of content that I produce. But yeah, I think that's right. I think it's right there. Okay, let's grab an Order Army. Here, we'll grab Daughters of Cain. They're hanging out at the bottom there like a little appendix. One of the most winning armies of all time. Consistently strong. Where do Daughters of Cain fall?
To me, they read like a Spike Timmy army.
Okay.
Because, like, you can't play Daughters and not
defend yourself.
Yeah. Like, you can't play Daughters and not be comfortable with Spike, right? Like, with losing things, right?
Oh,
like
it's not the Spike part I'm disagreeing with.
Yeah, it's the Timmy part.
Yeah.
So, the reason why I'm saying Timmy is because, like, Daughters lends itself to big numbers.
Sure.
And, like, picking up handfuls of dice and just, like, and again, I'm thinking particularly of the aspects of like witch elf hordes, which we haven't seen in a long time, but those were all super Timmy. Now that said, it's probably, like, I hear your critique, it's probably more Spike-ish than anything.
Yeah,
because it doesn't have lots of the monsters and stuff like that. But at its center was always Marathi, who was always big and stompy. So I don't know. I like maybe Daughter more Spike-ish. I don't know. The more I talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is absolutely like one of the more Spike armies around. Like, I'd be willing to put it like there. You know, like with just slightly towing in because Marathi is a pretty cool, big, interesting monster, and sure, because hordes, and if your brand of Timmy is you want to roll up, get a unit to 4 attacks each and roll 120 dice, and that is a brand of Timmy, right?
Like,
this
is
an army.
I can't look at Chuck and say that he's anything but a strong Timmy.
Yeah,
and he absolutely loves this army because of the Timmy elements that are strong there.
That's fair. Now you say that you know what? I'll say this. Here's what I'll do. I'll buy your example. I'll push it just a couple more steps into Timmy, and it's like, almost all Kraith doing it.
It is. Yep.
Kraith is carrying so much water in that move because Kraith takes a very Spike army and takes all its power and shoves it into randomness. Yes. Which is like the most Timmy move you can execute, right?
Yes.
Yep. And that's why he likes it, right?
Yes. Yes.
The vast majority of players over time did not play Kraith.
I
mean, shout out to Chuck for logging literally hundreds of games with it.
Yep.
Right? But I see it as sitting right in that space. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Let's bring in some chaos, shall we? Tzeentch. The Disciples of Tzeentch.
Tzeentch to me is a Johnny Spike army leaning Spike.
Okay. Why so?
So it's to the right of Night On. Because it has all of the tools, like it's inherently a Johnny army simply because of all the lever tools and everything that it thrives on.
Agreed.
But its base mechanic is a Spike mechanic.
Is cheat. Eliminate randomness.
Yes. You don't want to roll dice anymore? Cool.
Right.
Play Tzeentch.
Yep.
So that's why I said it is a Spike Johnny army that leans heavy into Spike.
Yeah, I mean, anytime your core mechanic, and it's even more now, because you get to start with an endless spell on the table. Why deal with casting rolls, right? Why roll dice?
Yeah, you don't. Yes, you just automatically get one of these.
It has one of the most hyper-efficient kill boxes. It has one of the most hyper-efficient anvils in the game, right?
Yep.
But it also is an army of shenanigans. We cannot, Johnny loves it because it is shenanigan-y, right? Deciding when to use your dice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Knowing when to execute on exactly how to cast your spells. You have so many spells to cast and so many potential targets and so many fate points you can use. It's decision tree the army, right?
Sure.
And so, to me, I think it sits pretty dead in the middle is my honest answer.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. Again, we'd be arguing over slight degrees there. you know.
Yeah.
But to me, it has the combo, the lists, the decisions, everything that Johnny loves. It's a chance to prove, to express cleverness, but it also absolutely has a strong game plan to win, to prove, that you can take a game. Right? And it's just, it's right there. Okay. And so to me, that just says like, boom, it hits that center spot. All right.
Yep.
Let's swing back up to the top. Geats. We're talking new Geats here. Okay. And an important thing to note is that the power level of an army is not necessarily derivative of it, because that swings over time, right? It can be it can influence it, but it's not determinative solely.
I'm gonna say that Git sits between Timmy and Johnny.
Okay.
Towards the inner side of the triangle, moving towards Spike.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, where would it have sat not new book? Would you push it at all towards Spike in the new book? Or in the old book? Sorry. Apologize.
No. It would have been firmly in the Timmy space.
Okay.
Because the old mechanics for list building were anti-Johnny. Like, there was no synergy across any of the sub-factions.
It would have had to appeal to the part of Johnny that likes to win with underappreciated things. So I do think there was still Johnny there. But yeah.
Yeah. But the randomness of the mechanic, but the prior and the current, just inherently push Spike out.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that there are still elements of Spike. So I would put it in the center of where the overlap is between the Johnny Timmy triangle.
Yeah, I think I agree with that actually. I think it's absolutely a pretty clearly defined Timmy Johnny army. You look at stuff like trolls and wacky shenanigans, and it has the wacky shenanigans that Johnny loves, but it does those with a lot of the types of randomness and events and things that aren't wholly within your power that Timmy loves, right? You look at things like the Loon Boss on Mangler. That guy is just random numbers all over the place. His move has randomness to it. His damage is like all over the shop on what damage it does, right?
Yep.
So that's just a super Timmy unit hiding out in the army, right? Now there are some real Johnny-ish aspects to how it plays. I think of new river trolls and being able to use those and position those carefully with an extremely powerful but extremely short range thing. That's a great Johnny unit. Being able to properly execute on that unit going the right direction, setting up the counterplay for it and so on. Very Johnny-ish thing, right?
Robust, I think about the robust spell lores.
Sure.
Right? And all the tools that are in the...
Yep.
So.
No, I agree. I think it's very much a Johnny Timmy army. I think it can... what I'll say is, at a deeper level than this, I think it could move up and down that triangle, depending a lot on your list. Okay? Yep. I think there are more or less wholly Timmy sort of lists you can build out of it, and wholly Johnny sort of lists you can build out of it.
Yep.
Based on the way you decide to utilize the units on offer here. I do agree with... I'm sorry I missed who... there you go. Freddie said it. It's a Timmy Johnny army that's priced too efficiently right now. Yeah, exactly. Spike is over here sniffing where he doesn't belong because of the hyper efficiency of these units, right? Because they're way underpointed. But the second those points go back to where they should be, okay, right. Spike's he's out of here.
Yeah, right? That's not interesting to Spike anymore. Right. But Timmy's I don't know. It's just a couple less squigs.
Right. Who cares?
I'm
still in for this, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's grab a little order army here. Let's grab some Fire Slayers, Tom. Where are we putting these little angry fellows? Where are they going?
Honestly, I would put them pretty firmly between Timmy and Spike.
Okay.
They have historically been marked by hyper efficiency, right? And you see this just simply because you don't have a lot of options, right? that you have reliability and redundancy even in some of the builds for Spike, right? So like you get the buff that you need when you need it, right? They have the stompy elements that like the flashy big numbers that Timmy is gonna want. Like
you're saying in builds like for the if you're going all magma droths and stuff like that.
Yep. But I think because of the hyper efficient, I still think that there's some Spike in there. I mean, it is an army that is built to die, right? Like they are in it to do a punch up and lose some bodies and kill the enemy. And so like it's not a tricksy mobility, like it is a in your face punch you into the ground and just win by meat and fists.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they are a Timmy Spike. I'm gonna push them in the middle. Oh, I forgot to darn it all.
I mean, I would lean probably more Timmy than Spike for me, but I could see them being dead middle between the two of those.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put it pretty in the middle-ish because I think that largely depends on sort of points and exact specific rules. I think they floated back and forth, but they like little bits here and there, but they've always been in the overlap space, right? Yeah. They don't have a large variance of units, so list building is not a super part of this.
It's fairly linear. Yep.
There's not a lot of things. There's low mobility, so there's not a lot of chance to use things in like a clever way to pull unexpected plays. The
low
things
decision points.
Low like decision points. Yep. Yep. It's you need to move, use the move rune. You need to kill, use the rend rune, right? Like there's a put the appropriate face with the appropriate emotion. Like that's it. You know what I'm saying? They love that. It's simple, efficient, effective stuff. It doesn't die. It hits hard. It does what it's supposed to do. For the most part, the units do what they say on the tin, and that's it, right?
Yeah. Like Hearthguard Berserkers are a great example of like a typical Spike unit. 100%. Like it just does everything. It kills well. It survives well. It murders. It does the thing.
It does the thing. It's one of the, again, I absolutely could have used a Hearthguard Berserker as the sort of iconic for Spike, 100%. Because it's another one of those units that's just, it's doing a lot and appealing to everything Spike wants, right?
Yep.
Being efficient on O and D and a path to victory all in its own right.
Yeah.
Right.
The only thing that would have made it more Spike is how it used to be in Lords of the Lost, like a double island.
Yep. Okay. Let's grab some S2D here. Let's talk about new slaves to darkness. Where are we putting them? What do you got here? Chase says dwarves also hate shenanigans. An excellent point.
I mean, if it's me, I would put slaves almost dead middle.
Why so?
Because I feel like it plays in all the spaces and it has something for everyone.
Okay.
It has the shenanigans of Johnny. It has the hyper efficiency of Spike, and like the big armor dudes of Chaos all appeal to the Timmy. So I am inclined to put them more towards the middle, but I also understand. I understand if we move them out of Timmy.
No, I think they're 100% dead middle. I think they are the axis around which this triangle turns. Let me see if I can justify this for everybody. Okay? Let's talk about the Johnny aspects first. List building for days. For days. They have all the units in the world and they work in very independently and in lots of interesting ways. Right? Like how you choose to combine units and do wacky things. Like what marks are you taking? What units are you marking what? What's their general job you're putting those things in? When you've got a base anvil unit that, depending on how you mark it and play it, could become a hammer, right? That's Johnny's dream right there, right? You have so that's like there's a lot of like chances to use things in very clever ways and stuff like that. Spike side. Spike loves like Nurgle marked Chaos Warriors. If you're trying to lean into roles and do things in an efficient way, you've got Nurgle icon wielding Chaos Warriors. You have Khorne marked Chaos Knights. You have Slanesh marked Ultra Chosen, right? Like the efficiency is there, and they'll do it, right? Timmy side, you've got big wacky monsters and stompy things like the aforementioned they're not actually monsters, I know, again, but the Sphinx and the Fulmoroid and the Myrmidons. You've got the Ogroids, which are a super Timmy unit. They come low save, come swinging in with this high damage. They're lots of wacky fun. And most importantly, that's absolutely right, Kyle. You got it. That's where I was going. One of the most Timmy mechanics in the history of Timmy mechanics, Eye of the Gods. Let's go. Right? Like, yeah, I want to roll. I could turn myself into a spawn. I could become a demon prince or get some wacky bonuses. That's so Timmy, right? Like, it speaks volumes that the first S2D list I tested when the game came out, when the book came out, was a ramp Eye of the Gods to 1,000,000 list, right?
Yep.
And it's just like, it is the definition of a Timmy mechanic, right? Do a wacky thing, punch a button, maybe get a reward. Right?
Sure.
Like Timmy wants to go play extra mini games in the game. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's just the dead center. It's always kind of been the hub which all the other spokes go around. Right. It's always had elements of all three books and can just like lean all of those directions depending on how exactly you decide to play it. Right. Okay. Cool. Good stuff. Okay. Let's go back to order because there's a lot of them. This is the basic reason I keep jumping to order.
So many. Okay. Bring to front. IDK, Tom. What are we doing with IDK? The Ideneth Deep Kin. Where are these guys going?
I'm going to put them in Johnny. Full blue, but just to the left of Nighthawk.
Okay.
Because I think that IDK, like inherently it is a Johnny. It is an army of exceptions, right? Like everything is about lining up the right circumstance to maximize. Like that is their mechanic of how do you get to deny the enemy to do a fun thing, right? Like it is anti-Timmy in that sense. Like it is built to make Timmys not have fun with their shooting and targeting. But I think that it lends itself towards Spike because of because the reliability and there are that will push it towards that reliability. And so I still think that I wouldn't call it the epitome of Johnny.
No.
But I would say that it is Johnny firmly with a lean towards Spike.
Okay. I think it's a little more Spike than you're giving it credit for. Like I'd put it here above Nighthaunt, where it's kind of towing in to Johnny Spike, Let's call it like 75-25. Now, admittedly, we have I saw somebody say Hades, said, okay, but all turtles though. Yeah, like I get it. I understand the turtle's a very Timmy unit. It is, right?
Yep.
Because Timmy likes sharks and turtles and stuff. But in the end, that's not enough to carry it up there. Like, sure, we can, I can push it up this way just a little, so it's kind of inching up there. But that's not the actual experience. Like, turtles don't do big, cool things. They're actually just pretty, like, they look cool. They look like a Timmy unit.
Right.
But they act like a Johnny Spike unit. They're this hyper-efficient cover machine that, like, is very tough to remove and can go in and do pretty reliable, moderate damage. And the only thing that's generally held them back is they keep getting pointed too high, right? Yeah. But, like, the list-building phase in IDK is huge. The decision points amongst IDK is wild, right? This is an absolutely crazy army. If you like, we talked about when we did the IDK review, about how high skill players, the skill ceiling on IDK is super high, right? When you start talking like that, that's the sign you're in a Johnny army, right? Because there's so many decision points to be made that Johnny looks at that and goes, I can capitalize on these decisions. I can make the right decisions at the right time, right? It'll give me the optionality to do what I need to do, you know? But it's also Spike because it is still largely about, exactly for the reasons you said. I agree completely. Things like shutting off the enemy shooting, making, you know, they can only target what you want to target, and like there's a lot of choice removal from your opponent, and just sort of general efficiency that is something Spike enjoys, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. And I do. Sean said AOS is a Timmy leaning game in general. Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. That's why many armies have like a Timmy branded subfaction. They might as well write it in there, right?
Yes. Often it says you can have an extra monster, or all your monsters gain X. Congratulations, you found the Timmy.
Right, and they're almost never the good ones, but they're always there, and I appreciate that they're there because that opens up the door of an army that otherwise doesn't really have much Timmy presence to Timmy also drawing some enjoyment out of it and having fun with it, if everything else falls in line, like they like the models and all that stuff, if their appreciation profiles are also in line. And that's the key. It's not like these things work alone. They all work in tandem.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about some Soul Blight Grave Lords. The SBG. All right. What about them, Tom? Where are we going?
I mean, I feel like SPG in their current incarnation sits in that center space between Johnny, Spike, and Tim.
Okay. Why so?
Because it has the reliability, like, so Virkos, like some of the most popular sub-factions are like granting the reliability that you're looking at with spellcasting, or are granting the reliability with bonuses that the Spike is really going to want. But ultimately, SPG is a very strong toolbox army.
Yep.
If you just have to look across their units and how you build that army, and it is truly like a tool for the right, situation. You can see it in their spell lords. You can just see it like all the way down. And the differences between the Mortarks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are lots of very unique tools that Johnny can exploit in the book. Likewise, it's hard to look at things that like zombie hordes and not see a Spike Timmy unit, right?
Sure.
Like there are aspects of Soul Blight that Timmy just loves. Timmy loves the stompiness. Timmy loves the vast, like, pushing your toys around and lifting enemy toys.
Mm-hmm.
Chadakar is a perfect Timmy type piece, right? He hits hard and he makes everything around him. Like, that is the epitome of Chadakar. And so or like the Velazda, right? Sure. The Velazda is another example of just a huge, like, stompy Timmy piece. And so my gut is to put it like overlapping pretty significantly with like Slaves to Darkness, although I would drift it a little bit lower. Like it is less Timmy than I think even Slaves is.
Yeah, I don't think you're way off there. To me, it sits firmly in this space right here. So what I mean by that is I've put it mostly Johnny, with towing into the Johnny Timmy and towing into the Spike Johnny. Okay? But it's mostly a Johnny army. And let me see if I can defend that. Okay?
Okay.
Again, we're dealing with like a very large number of units, a lot of list building potential, a lot of individual pieces that need to be used in a clever way. It doesn't have a lot of your units. You mentioned like taking Virkos and stuff, but that just kind of brings you up to par or like makes you decent. A lot of your units are trash base.
Sure.
They're just trash. Other than say like Blood Knights, right? Who are on scroll great. A lot of your units are just bad. Like they don't do much base. But there's a toe of hyper efficiency in there and things like zombie hordes when you just start rolling enough dice. Like Spike looks at that and goes, yeah, that's very effective. I can mortal wound things down and restore models. Like it's a predictable unit, right?
Right.
In that I can rely on the law of large numbers to sort of net me a certain number of mortal wounds every time I attack, and it combines well with Van Hells and so on and so forth, right?
But putting blocks of zombies back through grave sites is a Timmy thing.
Maybe not. I that's why I towed in to the sort of Timmy Johnny. Like I said, there's a toe in there, but here's how I'm rating it. I'm super Timmy. I hate this army. I find the play experience completely unappealing. Right? Now, I'm not the spokesperson for all Timmys. Okay?
Sure.
And I do think there's some Timmy aspect to it. I agree with your point about the Velazda. I agree with your point about something like Avangori, right? It definitely has some functionality in there. Yeah. But ultimately, I think of somebody who's really known for this army. Okay, so like Hobby Bear, Brendan, right?
Yeah.
The Lord of Death, known for this army, right? The reason he likes this army is because of the Johnny-ish nature of it. Like, you listen to him talk about it. He loves the toolbox, the optionality it gives him, right? Making the critical decisions with the critical units at the critical times.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the majority identity of this book. Again, I think it toes toward Spike. I think it toes toward Timmy. I agree with you. It has some elements of both of those in there. But the majority identity of this book is a Johnny book. Right? That's ultimately where I come down. Okay. Cool. Let's keep going. Alrighty. Let's go back to order again. We're going back to that well. Sylvaneth. Where are we going with these guys?
I don't
Let me
know.
shortcut you. You ready?
Yeah,
Boom.
hit me.
They go all the way over in the far side of Johnny. They are and almost always have been a purely Johnny army. Okay? They rely on wackadoo shenanigans the whole time to win. This is Shenanigans the Order army. Strike and Fade is a Johnny-ish thing. Like, they do weird spell casting things and charge and retreat and trick you with Unleash off of the the stupid little butterfly people we just talked about, Gossamet archers,
Yeah.
right? What a Johnny-ish trap that is trying to lay, right? Move this here, and then the situation you sketched out. I know that like they don't actually get used in Sylvaneth, but the situation you sketched out, right. is a super duper Johnny thing, right?
Right.
Because you're trying to out clever people, and that's how the whole list works, right?
Yeah.
And
like
yeah,
they win by out Johnnying the other person.
Right. Like, this is why the way the whole army wants to function is like this, is being tricksy, right? Yeah. And being this weird, like, strike and fade ambush force with high mobility that moves around and has fragile pieces, but then when applied in the right way, then all of a sudden it wins. And, like, that's the identity of the army, right?
Yep.
Now, that's varied, and sometimes when things got super cheap, you got like Kurnoth spam or something like that, which was this like very spiky evolution of the thing, right? But that's come and gone. The army has always, at its core, from the jump, it's like, hey, do you want to express cleverness, right?
Sure. Yeah.
This is your army. Like, sure, Durthu's a very Timmy piece with his giant 6 damage sword, right?
Right. But almost everybody who plays Sylvaneth doesn't rely on Durthu's sword. Right. They almost universally curse it because it's not reliable.
You know what they rely on? Yes, 100%. You know what they rely on? Their plan.
Yeah, correct.
Every Sylvaneth player's got a plan. Okay? They've got a plan. I'm going to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. That tells you you're in Johnnytown. When you've got a 5-6 step sequence plan you're trying to execute, welcome to Johnnytown.
Yeah.
Right? When I roll up with my giants, I don't have a plan. Like, there's no plan. I'm going to walk forward and figure things out, right? I'll respond in the moment.
You're gonna punch some stuff in the face.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I don't do I look like a guy with a plan, right? I mean, ironically, yes, you did look like a guy with a plan in that movie. That's why I don't actually think that second movie's very good. But at any rate, although incredible performance as always. So, but like, this is Johnny's trying to execute a very complicated plan every time. And then often, as Cygnus just said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's usually where their plan falls apart, when somebody alpha strikes them down, right? Like, that's it.
Right. Poor Sylvaneth.
Yes. So that's, I mean, like, that's, boom. There you go. Done and dusted. Yep. They're way over there in the corner. Like, get farther out. All right, we'll put them over here. They need to go all the way down. Okay. Cool beans. Let's talk about Nurgle. So, Tom, what's your thoughts on Nurgle? Where are they living?
So I would probably put Nurgle deep into Spike, or into Spike, fully into Spike. But I would I would drift it up towards Timmy. Because I think that there are Timmy elements of, especially with the simplified decision making plan. And I think about, like, you know, old fly spam, right? Just push it all forward.
Sure.
Like, all of that is just super, super Timmy. I wouldn't put them fully into Spike, because I also think that there are Johnny elements and there are Johnny builds within there. Although that's certainly the minority, and that's not really where it sits. And so, like, I would probably put it to the left of Daughters, but fully in the green.
Okay. I've got a slightly different opinion, but we're pretty close. Okay. My opinion is Nurgle is the Spike mirror reflection of Soulblight. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see that.
Yeah, they sit like this, towing slightly into the Timmy Spike and towing slightly into the Johnny Spike, right? Your list building does matter now, especially that the points have been adjusted. There, you do have to make decisions, but you don't have like a huge number of decisions. You have a lot of resilience to it. Spike loves resilience, right? Where you can, like, something can afford to roll bad for you and you still tend to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
What's so fascinating to me, so finish talking. Go ahead.
No, and there's a lot of predictability into things, like, you think, oh, but disease is super random. No, it's really not, right? Disease is often pretty predictable. You get in fights, you will tend to ramp people to 7 disease. You will tend to do 3 mortal wounds, right? It's like, that's what Spike's looking for, that predictable baseline, right? Yep. It's like they know they can chew and affect and withstand a certain mathematically predictable amount, right? It's not decision based. It's just, this will be hard to punch through while simultaneously doing damage. Those kinds of attrition forces lean quite heavily Spike, right? You know, Timmy likes things like the cycle or some of the interesting big
the Magath Lords.
Thank you, Timmy, the Magath Lords. Yeah, you know, Orgoth's super Timmy-ish kind of guy, right?
Yep.
Glotkin. Yep, absolutely.
Timmy likes the Blight Kings.
Yep, absolutely. So it toes into both of those spaces. There's some elements in there, right? It's not like it belongs in the corner. It's not that spiky. No. Right. It's over there. Okay.
No, it makes me laugh when I look at how because the armies that I started and have drifted away from, that I have like full armies of, all sit more firmly in Spike than I like to be.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's see. So that was Chaos. Let's go ahead and grab another Order army here, because you got to keep working these things down. They just keep coming. There's so many of them. Let's finally do it. LRL. Loom Ineth Realm Lords. Where do you guys sit?
I would just slot it like butting up against to the left of Nighthaunt.
To the left of Nighthaunt, okay.
It is a Johnny army, but it is a Johnny army with a whole lot of...
Sure.
And what I mean by that is it has a lot of build options at this point. It has a lot of weird utility mixed into those units, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has a wonderful customizability pieces like with running a bunch of like a diverse array of wizards, and yet it also has pieces like Teclis. It also has pennies to re-roll failed casting rolls. Like it has reliability in a way that Spike loves.
Sure.
And so I still see Lumineth inherently as more of a Johnny army, Spike army, but I think that it's moving into Spike space.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close on this. I think for me, it's
not a Timmy army. That's what I'll say.
No, God no, God no.
Right.
There's not enough walking cow mountains in the world to make this into a Timmy army, right? There's way too many decisions, way too much complexity, way too much ridiculous NPE nonsense. I'm gonna sit it right here, kind of below S2D, where it's got like a fair amount of pure Johnny, but a decent amount of Johnny Spike, right, in it as well. Sure. Kind of splittish down the middle, right? And so like it absolutely, in all of its decision points and ways that you have to like play the units, even though they got a lot of stuff removed in the current book, it's still a very Johnny-ish army, right? And it absolutely wants to, like, it has options like Sentinels, the iconic, I think, for a Spike unit, right?
Yep. Hyper efficiency. Yep.
Right. It's just this sort of hyper efficiency, even in their current incarnation, right? And I think Lord Zeev said it's a Johnny army with a few very Spike lists, and I think that's a great way to summarize it, right? And so, you know, that's why I've leaned it sort of half into Johnny Spike, because I think there is some stuff in there that's just that it can push that efficiency button, you know, things like
it appeals way more to Spike. Yeah, no, I see that.
Yeah, I think of things like the Ignoring Rend and stuff like that, right? That kind of element. Teclis is like Spike loves the crap out of Teclis, right? Hey, get rid of dice roll. I'm here.
Spike, like Teclis, is the only wizard Spike would ever want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the perfect Spike wizard.
And then I do this, and then I do this, and I do this.
Yeah.
Are you going to respond? Because if you're not, I just auto-cap. Mm-hmm. There's no chance of failure.
Yes. Any responses?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Great. Let's go back up here and let's grab a Destruction Army, shall we?
Sure.
Let's grab some Auric War Clans. Now remember, we have to consider the whole book. This isn't just Ironjawz the book or whatever, right? There are 4 distinct armies in here, which could make this somewhat tricky. But I'll take the lead on this one. Okay. Because this is obviously a book I have a deep and abiding love for.
Yep.
So, Ironjawz are easily read as being a 100% Timmy force.
No.
I think
they're Timmy Spike.
I think that is a wrong read, right? They are very potent, and there's actually quite a lot of optionality to how they get used. Sure. Like when you decide how you decide to they have a very complicated sort of movement ballet you have to do to get that. Cruel Boys, theoretically, like again, talking design intent here, right?
Sure.
Clearly wants to be this Johnny-esque army, right? That's winning by these weird tricks and decisions and clever play, and like this guy pops out 9 inches away from you, and these people are untargetable, and you know, dirty tricks as a name is just like the most Johnny-ish name for a thing, right?
Yep.
The problem is they gave Cruel Boys, like, it's a super Johnny thing, but it's super random at the same time, and Johnny can often feel like it's a little out of his control because the tricks are so unreliable, right?
Yeah, so like that, I would rank Cruel Boys as a Johnny leaning Timmy.
Yep.
And I would argue that Ironjawz is Timmy leaning Spike.
Yep.
And I think that my guess is that the big Wah would be center. It would be like lower Timmy, leaning center between Johnny and Spike, because I think that inherently, like, it appeals to both Spike having having all of the best of the hyper efficient units while also being Johnny because of the list building options. And so my gut is to put this directly above.
Don't forget about your Savage Orcs, because obviously those guys are Timmy leaning Spike.
Like, yeah,
it's Timmy lean Spike a little bit, because it is just like body clogging the board is another way to gain hyper efficiency, right? It's cheap units.
My gut would be to place this above Slaves to Darkness, just to the left of Fireslave.
Yep. It's exactly where I was going to put it. It was going to top out that triangle. I completely agree. Yep. It's just right living in this space where there's a lot of strong Timmy elements to it, right? It wants to do big things and roll big stuff and do big numbers, but it has its individual components, right? Will often lean way more to one side or the other, because it's not, the key is it's not all these things at once. If you're the Cruel Boy side, it leans way to the left side of the spectrum. You know, if you're much more like Big Wah, it's going to lean way to the right side of the spectrum. Big Wah is often like, let me harvest the best of all possible worlds, which is such a Spike thing to do, right? And so I think that's where it sits, where it's putting those toes, those feelers, those tendrils out into those other spaces, and it will slide on almost this kind of an axis, depending on what army you're actually playing out of this book that contains 4 armies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Stormcast Eternals. Where they living? Tough one, right? It's a big force. A lot of scrolls. You'd think list building would matter. A lot.
I mean,
but it doesn't.
Me, it doesn't. They're like upper Spike leaning Timmy. Like they're in between Maggotkin and Doc for me in that hole.
Yeah, I'd probably put him a little up higher, but yeah, I think that's pretty
more
true.
Timmy. Because
a little bit more.
Because so much of what Stormcast does is just hyper efficient, best of, like, which is Spike. Like that's just it. That's why I said there's no actual list building challenge here, because you just ignore half the units in the book. It's famously the book with the worst internal balance, right? Yeah. You got all these samey units. One is clearly the best, right? Yeah. It has all these Spike type elements in hot efficiency, you know, and again, the points have moved around on stuff, but it doesn't matter. Like, functionally, role wise, regardless of where the points are, you know, these things clearly are well designed into a specific role. The fact that you have a unit called Annihilators with Grand Hammers and Annihilators with Shields is like these extremely role defined things. That tells you everything you need right there. Yep.
Right. And like, yes, there are some strong Timmy-ish elements, like dragons are cool and dragons can be pretty random, and you'll have that turn where it's like 12 mortal wounds, exactly that situation I talked about earlier, right, when you spit fire. But Spike doesn't care about that. He's not fishing for the 12 mortal wounds. He's just looking for a solid
wants that 6.
Yeah, like a solid like 4 to 6, and that's a good turn, right?
Yes. Like that's what he's running the math on. Like, is that 4 to 6?
Yeah. And so like it again, like all of these, it could move around a lot based on what you specifically choose, but I think that's the pocket it sits in. I agree.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let's talk Beasts of Chaos. Where are beasts going?
Man, it's such a challenge. My gut is to put beasts to the left of Moon Clan, in the window between Johnny and Tim.
I have the exact same instinct. It's like right in that spot. I think they lean a little more Timmy. Okay.
I would agree with that, but the key is that like you don't get anywhere with, and most of the time the plan is outmaneuvering your opponent by putting bodies and creating chaff lines and summoning behind their lines, and like that's how Beast is normally winning.
Yep.
It's very Johnny-ish in play style, even though inherently most of what you're doing is like Stompy Beast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like they, again, because of some of the efficiency in the past, they a lot of spikes came around and sniffed around this space, right? But
Yeah.
I think if you look at the current book, it doesn't have the feel of a lot of spike type elements, right? The units are fairly fragile, they're fairly unreliable, they're not hyper efficient, right, or something like that. There are some that are strong in rolls, but they're still not like the most efficient things. You've got to have a pretty solid plan on the table for how you need to use your units. It again responds very strongly to, you know, it responds very strongly again to your skill level, right? Like the skill ceiling is very high on beasts when you're using all of your pieces correctly, right? It will respond to that very strongly. At the same time, it is also the army of like wackadoo monsters. You know what I mean? Like gorgons and cygors and chimeras and all this kind of crap, right? It does all exist. And it is the army of like making a ton of attacks and having these big turns where a bunch of big wild things happen, right? I think that I could see arguments for sliding it more toward Johnny, like maybe down here a little bit, but I think ultimately it does lean. It's more toward the upper side of that triangle than the lower side of that triangle.
Sure.
I think it is. Sure. There's a lot of very strong Johnny-ish elements to it, right? Maybe it should be like down here a little more as opposed to here. And I could see it being somewhere in this liminal space, but for now I'll give them a little toe in there just because of the sheer number of like, how much different elements they seem to want to be pulling at the Timmy space. But it's definitely a Timmy Johnny army, right? Then we'd just be arguing about degrees, right? It is just as Dave said, as a Johnny, I like that this army is challenging to master. And I agree with that. Right? Like that's another super Johnny trait, right? They want that minutes to learn, lifetime to master kind of army, and that very much feels like what Beast is playing in the space of. Okay. All right. Cities O Sigmar. Where are these bad boys going?
Man, their bench is so deep and their abilities are so like tricksy. Like they feel like a Johnny army to me, but there are elements that call to Timmy. There are elements that call to Spike. So I'm actually putting them just left of the Soulblight book.
Okay.
Because I think ultimately this army is I honestly believe it is a Johnny army, right? Because of options.
Sure.
Because they have, like, when you build a list, you have to build a list.
Power pairs and combinations and who's doing what and yada, yada, yada. Yep, agreed.
Yes. No, it is that thing, but it's not pure Johnny. Like, it definitely has elements of Timmy and Spike, which is what pushes it towards the middle. And so, like, my gut is to put it with Soulblight.
Yeah.
Like, right next to Soulblight to the left.
I agree. I think it's a little bit down more. I don't think it's quite drifting up into the crossover space of either one. It's kind of pushed up toward that side of the Johnny space, but I think it's still firmly Johnny for all the reasons you said there, right? Deep bench, lots of list building complexity, lots of decisions you can make, lots of things that you're going to get this chance to express your intelligence in using those individual components. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's also a super old book, and who knows? This is one of those things that they could completely redefine
reinvent
in the new book. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Corn. Okay. Here's an easy answer. You ready? Like, this one's so simple. In its current form, it slides 100% over here into Johnny. Like, it needs to be the far corner, even farther than Sylvaneth. It's so far out here. All the rest of these armies are like, I can't even see you, bro. Where are you at? Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't know anything about what's in the next book. Okay? But I will bet you dollars to donuts, just based on what I saw with Nurgle and Tzeentch and everything else so far, that the next version of this book is going to end up like here. It's going to jump way up into the Timmy, just towing into Johnny space. Right? Yeah. Like, I think this book will always have some Johnny in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But right now it's way too far tilted in this direction. Like way too far.
Yep.
It is the book of, it's like Clever Ballet, the book. Right.
Yeah.
And it'll be really, really interesting.
And
to
triggering
see
blood tithe at just the right time.
Just the right time, moving in just the right way, having just the right units, maintaining just the right bubbles. Right?
Yeah.
The question is how, I don't think the question is, will the next book go Timmy? It's a question of how far into Timmy does it go?
Sure.
Yeah, right?
I would agree with that. Yep.
That's it. So, okay. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right. Flesh Eater Courts.
Well, there's not a lot of armies that sit firmly in Timmy, but I think Flesh Eater Courts is one of those.
Yeah.
I think that, but what I would say is this: I don't think it's as, I think it's more centralized because there are elements that pull it into Johnny or pull it towards Spike, but it is inherently a Timmy army.
Agreed. I agree. I completely agree with that. I'd put it like down here somewhere, maybe towing a little bit more toward the Spike side because it is a rather simple list. Like maybe it's over here a little bit ish. Yeah. But it's a pretty firmly Timmy army. You have like it's making some noises towards Spike, right? In these like big like units that can like do really efficient plays for their points, right? But ultimately it's a very Timmy army. It relies a lot on randomness, rolling sixes to hit, having all these guys. It's like zombies roll out, zombies yell at you, zombies claw you to death, zombies fly forward and smash. Right? It's a very smash army. Right? At least in its current form. Okay. Cool. Caradron Overlords.
I thought a lot about this.
Yeah, sure.
Because so what I'll say is in its current form, it is a Johnny army.
Yes.
Like fully 100% Johnny. There are elements that definitely leans. It is like the army as it currently is push all your chips onto the table and let's see what happens. It has a number of hyper efficient pieces and reliability in its current form. Like I think about the fly high and stuff like that. I think about spell in a bottle. And so I put it firmly in Johnny just to the right of the Sylvanet.
Okay. Do you think that will maintain?
I don't know. Like what I'll say is this: my read so far is that there's so many knobs that have been turned. I don't know what to think of it.
Okay.
And so I need to spend more time with the whole picture, right, in order to assess that. But my gut is that it moves more to Timmy in its next incarnation. Most of the Spike elements that were there previously are gone. Like I feel like from like the things that made KO enticing to Spike players are just simply not there in the new. And so I don't know, and actually like a lot of the Johnny thing away from as well. Like a lot of the like ballet dancing movement fly high stuff, like it's simply not as it's not as mobile in the new incarnation. It's not as like you can fly high if you issue a command ability to one sky vessel, and it moves actually towards upping all of the numbers. So saves went down in like all the ships are 3-ups now from leaks on WhatsApp. Like in Rob's video that I talked about that he leaked the whole book. Like all the saves go to 3-up, and and a bunch of the attacks all go up. And so like it ends up coming off way more Timmy than we've ever seen the book. And so yeah, I'm like I need to digest it more, but my gut is that it moves into more of a hybrid Johnny Timmy in the new England.
Okay. Let's talk about Ogre Maw Tribes. Where the big boys going? Where the biggest of the big going here? I guess they're not the biggest, but they're big.
I mean, they're the epitome of Timmy Spike to me.
You think they just sit like super firmly in that space?
I do. They hit hard. They're reliable. They have the buffs that you want them to have, like the higher movement when they're not in combat. They have a fairly deep-ish bench from a role standpoint. Does that make sense? So not from a number of units, not like Stormcast from a deep bench, but just simply like they often have the things that they need in the types of roles that they need in their list building. And so my gut is to put it in more of a Timmy Spike space.
I actually agree with that. I think they sit pretty firmly here towards like kind of the top-ish of the Timmy Spike space, right?
Yep. More towards Timmy.
Timmy. Yep. But I think that's exactly where they are. Yep. No, I agree. I mean, big monsters, big charges, the chance to get your impact hits going to the moon and back, the 5 tyrant list we looked at, they want to live in this space, right? But it's also doing a lot of pretty good stuff with some of the units. Now there's some straight trash in here, like Johnny doesn't pull a lot of fun out of list building these. It's definitely on the opposite side from them. Like it's get this away from me, right? So yeah, I completely agree with your read. Okay. Seraphon. Oh, good God. Who knows what we'll have in summer, but as of right now, I mean, I can shortcut this one. They're Spike Lean Johnny.
Yeah.
Like they're in this space right over here in the crossover next to Zinch. Like they're the next logical step over into the Spike side, but they still have plenty of Johnny in there. There's a million choices to make, right? The problem is they're just all efficient. They're just all good. You have to make a million good choices, right? Which one of the crazy 1,000 buffs that you have access to are you going to use this time? They're all good. They're all really powerful. They all do everything you want to do as Spike, right? But it's got this strong Johnny infusion of you got to know when to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and so on and so forth, right? It's just the overall efficiency of it is so stupidly high. Right, and has been for such a long time in their incarnation, right? Mm-hmm. So, I will be very interested to see where that new book goes. Very interested.
Agreed.
Okay, cool. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, OBR. Where do these guys live? This is a tough one. This is a toughie. But I have a vote. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead and tell me what you think.
This is the Spike book. It's the Spike book. Okay? Now, we can argue about how well it succeeds in that role. All right?
Sure. Yep.
But I think one of the reasons that this book sees so little play is because it is a Spike book that is very hard to win games with right now. Let me see if I can justify this a little deeper. Some armies like Oryx or Ogres have been varying levels of good or bad at various points in their history. Like your chances of going 5-0 have varied quite dramatically with those two books. Yeah?
Yep.
Yet their meta representation always remained pretty high. Why? Because Timmy was playing them. And Timmy's goal wasn't to go 5-0, right? Yeah. It was to have a fun time with his army he enjoyed, right?
Yep.
OBR is a Spike-designed books, right? It's a Spike-designed book. It wants to have efficient, role-based, like it's this strict military march. Everything goes and steps and like, Cygnus said Catacross is like the Spike. Yes, your iconic leader is Spike given form in the mortal realms. Yeah. Right? So the reason Ossiarch Bone Reaper's meta percentage dropped to like darn near 0.
Right.
Is because
it's not actually fulfilling the vision of what it's supposed to.
Exactly. It's a Spike book that can't actually win games. So there's just no players for that.
Yeah.
Right? The Venn diagram becomes near zero. The bubbles almost stop touching. That's why it dropped to basically nobody playing this book. Ogres could be good. Ogres could be bad. There's going to be like 3% of people playing ogres.
Yep.
Same with Sons. Same with, exactly. Like this kind of stuff will just keep being out there, right? Because Timmy will keep this thing afloat. It's the same with Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth's another good example living on the Johnny side, right? Like Sylvaneth have been straight trash through a lot of their existence, but there's those diehards that are just going to like keep trying to like, no, they can outthink it.
No, I will get this Rube Goldberg machine to work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Skaven. Current Skaven.
Like I would put him in the Johnny Timmy space, I think.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, I think that I'd put him still firmly in the Johnny space, but I would migrate him actually into the triangle, into the upper triangle, in moving into Timmy, just because I think that there's enough of Timmy in there. Or like I think about the Plague Monks. I think about the I don't know.
It's tough, right? It's okay. So
Like,
let me give you my take on it. I think they sit just slightly to the left of S2D. Okay?
Okay.
In other words, like pushing a little more this way. And let me see if I can defend that. From a list building perspective,
Yep.
they are like very Johnny-ish. From an execution perspective, they are very Johnny-ish. From a things that are going to happen during the game that people love, they are very Timmy-ish. Yeah?
Yep.
Like they will have these big random massive payoffs, right? But there are some elements to them that are a little spiky. So it's the lowest, definitely the lowest on the thing. Like it's mostly a Johnny Timmy book with like some strong spike elements, right?
Yep.
Storm Fiends, Sacrificial Chaff, like hyper efficient chaff, right? These kinds of like reliable buffs at the same time. Like there are super reliable buffs that don't risk anything that Spike can get into. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like more warp power or Skaven brew or whatever, stuff like that, right? You can just straight up become immune to all battle shock. Like these are the kind of things, these are the kind of things that Spike really likes, right? Gutter runners lean that way very much. Like they're a very, predictable sort of unit. So it's playing in all three spaces, but for me it's like a 40-40-20. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's not as perfectly balanced as S2D is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're over more toward the Johnny Timmy space. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Last and certainly least, Slaanesh. Another thing that's about to have a new book, so we'll see where it goes.
So
this is a book for no one. Go ahead. Go.
No, you're right. No, and that's what I was about to say. So right now, my gut is that the Slaanesh book should be a Spike book.
Yep.
Winning for losing, right? Like out of pain and depravity, like pulling the victory, right?
Theoretically,
like
it should be a Johnny Spike book. Yes.
It should be a Johnny Spike book, right? But actually, I think it's only a Timmy book. Right? And what I mean by that is that like it's only rewarding, like the only people who are winning are playing it like Johnny. So here's the funny thing. I think it's supposed to be a Spike book. The only people who are winning with it are playing it like Johnny, playing it not how it's designed to be played.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I think ultimately what it's the type of behavior incentivizes Timmy, right?
Yep.
Which are these certain experience, like not playing to win, but playing to experience the thing.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And so it's not actually like it doesn't firmly sit in any one space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not balanced like Slaves to Darkness. And
right.
that it's actually disparate in all three so that no one is ever satisfied.
Right. It's whatever the opposite of S2D is. Right?
Right. Right.
I agree with you on all counts. I think you nailed it exactly. Right? It has no actual plan, coherency, feeling like it's written like a it should be Spike, but it wins like Johnny sometimes, but at the same time, like the rules itself seem to want to act like Timmy. Like
the people who are playing
what is going on here?
The people who are playing it are Timmys.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are winning with it are Johnnies. But it should be more Spike.
Yeah. My honest answer is yeah. Inquisitor says it's on the back of the diagram behind S2D. Like whatever the dark mirror of that is, that just it's not good at all these things. It just fails at all these things, right? It's amazing in its ability to be bad at all of these simultaneously. It's incredible, right? And I think right now in its incarnation, it's probably sitting here tucked under the table in like this Johnny Spike space, like way down, trailing off the bottom, right? Yeah. Just actually for no one. Like it's mostly off the table.
Right.
Right. And it just doesn't have an actual home. But like I will be very interested to see where this book goes. Very interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like the people who are playing it, and I think people who are playing it aren't the Johnny Spikes. The people who are playing it are the Timmys that are wanting the experience.
And they're having a miserable time.
And they're having a miserable time because it's not a Timmy book.
Right.
It's a Johnny Spike book.
Yep. There are people like me where the appreciation profile for all the models and everything that it seemed like its story and theme pull you in, and then you play it and you're like, oh God, this is terrible.
Yeah, this is a terrible experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I will be very interested to see where this goes. We'll come back to this again next year.
And like, let me just say that like a piece of this, the Keeper of Secrets is inherently a Timmy model that is not Timmy-ish.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Well, that's rough, sidetracked, but don't feel bad. There's a new book.
There are
on
many
the horizon.
armies out there. If this is not
if that one doesn't work for you, it's okay. You can get other armies. 2, there's a new book on the horizon. We have full faith that a new Slaanesh book is coming, so don't get disheartened if you don't have a good time, but I hope you have an excellent time and the army does well for you. But there you go. Okay. All right, so there we go. That's it. We've placed them all, Tom. We did it. Mission accomplished. Woo! So what do you think? Did we get anything wrong? Drop it down below. Tell us. I've seen a lot of great chats. Thank you, everybody. Hey, everyone, if you didn't hit like yet, you should do that. It's great and fun. Please hit like. It helps other people find the show. Subscribe if you haven't already. Do all those fun things. Don't forget, if you want to support the show, there is a merch store down below. There's also a Patreon focused on hobby and review and feedback, taking your next step on your hobby journey. So you can do that in all those ways, but just hitting the buttons, which is really fun for you and great for us. So clicking is great too. But Tom, thank you so much as always, brother. Much appreciated. And for all of you out there, we thank you so much for watching. As always,